Good evening, everybody. We are sort of on time. I'm gonna need a minute here just to get everything set up on the stream. I shouldn't even say sort of. It's only, 15, 20 minutes past the time that I wanted to get started. So, I'm actually rather looking forward to this session in particular. I just need to make sure I've got the right... I call it HOL. Anyways, this seems to be the right one, so we're going to open it up. So we spent a bunch of time sort of prepping for the, for some of the things. Hello, Book of Hours. Book of Hours. Hello, Lord Gloom. Good to see you. I feel like it's been a little while. Happy to see you. I know I can't really shout you out to anybody because I think you're the first one here, but I appreciate you stopping by nonetheless. Welcome back, Librarian. Everything is remembered. Hush House endures. Now, I suspect we are going... we're going to be hitting the Dawn soon. Listen, it's a good rebrand. Strong brand. Yeah, so for those of you not familiar with what we're doing, we are playing the House of Light expansion. This is an early beta, so please keep in mind that this is not the sort of thing you should make a purchasing decision off of beyond maybe being enticed by the possibilities in the Book of Hours, the House of Light early beta, and wish listing it to decide for yourself. But if you're, this thing is out, you're looking at it in history, there are going to be errors. I ran into a small error which didn't affect too much last stream, but definitely it's something that they are doing some testing with. And of course, the point of the beta and handing it out to other people, not just myself, is to get some feedback in terms of how it works. So I would definitely not recommend, locking in strategies or anything like that based on what I'm seeing. But I do tremendously enjoy this game, and I like sharing it with people. And I know some of you are excited to see what Book of Hours has to offer in the future. So this will be coming up in September, and we're actually going to be doing a lot of things that are, well, I hope we're going to be doing a lot of things that are related to the new content inside of House of Light. So, hello, RFSMGG00. So yes, I don't know if it is cake time, but it's definitely going to be food time. And I think the best thing that I can do here, the game kindly gave me Subtle Old Soldier to start off with. So we're going to cross over into the next day. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. I should want to try and figure out what I want to do with the occult scrapped here, but I am going to start planning for the party. So there's a few things that are going to be happening here. Number one, I want to continue reading books. Number two, I want to start planning out who can visit and sort of what we're going to serve. And then I'm going to want to sort of plan out, let me think of the right way to put this, like... there's the ingredients that I'm going to be making. So that's probably one. Okay, so sorry. First of all, books and lessons and so on and so forth. Those are a priority because I haven't quite decided yet on what gets committed to the Tree of Wisdoms, right? And I'm making some softer decisions by leveling up things like quenchings and quellings and pentiments and precursors over alternatives like great signs and great scars. But right now, nothing has been committed to the Tree of Wisdoms. Nothing here is irreversible. But once I start making some decisions, those are going to get locked in, and I'm going to need to have some clearer ideas in terms of where I'm getting certain things from. So that's one issue. And maybe one day I'll just sit down and actually work out what I want the Tree of Wisdoms to look like, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. So right now, I've been taking this approach to read different books that have skills that I don't need yet, right? So Journal of Walter de Wolf gives me Doran Wall. Sun's Lament gives me Ragged Crossroads, and Debellus Murorum gives me Disciplines of the Scar. And this is distinct from something like What Does Not Bark, or Against the Sisterhood of the Knot and the Foulness of Their Depraved Customs, True History of Valentine de Wolf, or Wainscot Histories. Each of these give me lessons for skills that I already have, which again is not a problem. I can use them for lots of different things, but that is going to put a clearer timeline in terms of what I want to do. In the sense that if I'm not careful, I wind up in Enuma, and I'm going to have to use all of those skills, and I may have to use those skills in a way that isn't as profitable as I might want to in other circumstances. So that's one consideration that I have. Another one that comes up is, it's one thing to want to invite guests, but I actually also need to find all of the parts that are required. So for instance, let's say I want to bring Serena in. So I guess at this point I would need to find a bunch of forge. So bells and braziers would get me started, although I'd need to find a different desk, but we can use we could use Ambrose's desk in this case. I guess I would need memory because I don't have a forge element of the soul as well. But yeah, one thing I'm kind of curious about is, could I just use any old ink to bring someone in? Because if I can, that's great. It means I can basically invite anybody that I want. If not, then that is sort of a separate problem for me to deal with. So, all right. Well, let's instead of speculating, let's think about how the day's going to go. So the Sun's Lament is probably the most straightforward one for me to try and bring in today. I don't recall if I have contradictions yet. I don't think I do. Right, and these were all too difficult. Okay. No contradictions yet. So, it's actually hard for me to see a situation in which well, I guess there's maybe hail. Okay. Next up. So, this card's ink was not sufficiently venomous to allure the attention of a guest. Well, I may wind up actually using Perinculate to try and bring Fraser Strathcoin in, so you joke, but... so I do want to get Yvette in the invitations. Now, one thing I would like to try and do, we have the Sweet Bones. So if I hire a fisherman, we get moon and some sky. So we'll just see what options are available here. So we've got a heart-haunted room. Oh, that's right. We also had... Okay, so we have 8 moon and 8 sky as a target as well. So let me just take a look at what I can do with this. Now, I think the moon would probably be better. So if we say fisherman with 2 moon, then the tryst, 1 moon. Chunky Man Gamer, that is a name I'm always happy to see. Great to see you, Chunky Man Gamer. I hope you are doing well, and thank you very much for your continued subscription over 2 years, according to Twitch, and I appreciate that tremendously. I should probably say 2.5 at this point. How have you been? And Daily Daybreak says, I was trying to figure out how one might draw you. For some reason, I picture you as a book-headed person with a plate of cake in one hand and a cup of tea in the other, and absolutely not as that shape-shifting chalk lady from that one Got Milk commercial. So I'm not familiar with the commercial that you were talking about, but you are definitely not the first person. There was someone who did a sort of a pixel art drawing of me without really knowing too much about what I looked like. They definitely had a book in one hand. I think they had my other hand in a pocket. But definitely books come up a lot, and tea comes up a lot. So you're actually not far off, Delude Daybreak. Wonderful to see you. By the way, I'm just because we have a few people in the chat now, I'll actually talk a little bit about some of the streamers in here, but I'm going to have a sip of tea just because Delude Daybreak inspired me. It's been busy. You want to start this game. Do you own this game yet? If you do, it's actually not a bad time. We're definitely not at the start of the playthrough anymore, but there's still lots of the house to unpack. So we're not so far in that it won't make sense. So I'm going to talk about everybody in order. So first of all, we have Lord Gloom, who came into the channel. Now I found, or rather, I guess Lord Gloom might have found me or I can't remember who hosted who first, but anyways, I did originally find Lord Gloom through Cobalt Core, which is a wonderful card game done by, it's published by Brace Yourself Publishing. It's actually developed by another group who made a really wonderful game called Sunshine Heavy Industries. I think they take place in the same universe. I might be wrong on that, but anyways, both are wonderful. And to a certain extent, I don't want to pigeonhole Lord Gloom, because some of the streams that I have enjoyed watching them play have often been something of that style, whether it is more Cobalt Core, whether it is Magic the Gathering. I've seen them play it live a few times. But I've also seen Lord Gloom play Escape from Tarkov, and have actually sort of explained the interest and the development of that game over time. And it was one that I'd sort of seen back when it was very early. There were a few people I knew who sort of were your early influencers with it, and they seemed to have a really good time. It seemed very intriguing, and I don't dislike that style of game. I liked the sort of the extraction shooter that they had in Battlefield 2047. But Lord Gloom has a good variety channel. It just happens to be that I've really latched on to the card games that they wind up playing, and so it's fun. We'll both be playing Lighthouse-centric games too soon. Dredge is next on the list. Excellent. So there is another excellent reason to check out Lord Gloom. Now, on top of that, we have also got Delude Daybreak in the channel, and Delude Daybreak was actually someone who I also found through a Brace Yourself game, in this case, Rift of the Necrodancer. And it would actually be wrong for me to say I found them. Delude Daybreak actually hosted the stream. It was an absolute joy to have in the channel, and then when I went and checked out their channel, had a wonderful time. I've seen both Crypt of the Necrodancer and Morrowind on the stream. But Delude Daybreak is, I would say, probably the charming personality that you see inside of the chat is very much the sort of vibe, the sort of atmosphere that you'll find inside of the channel. I feel very relaxed there. It's always fun to have some back and forth. And I'll actually say, too, that Delude has been in I won't say a tough spot as a broadcaster, because I'm not exactly, I'm not going to make or break a channel in terms of my presence, but very often I have found that I will be trying to get stuff done, or, I'll have some extra work that I'm doing. A lot of the work that I need to do now is a little bit more like I have to be in the office to do these sorts of things, or just generally I find myself I find myself a bit sort of just stretched thin in terms of getting some of these things done. But I always find, even though I'm pressed for time often, it's very easy to sort of get lost in Delude Daybreak's channel. It's like, I'll stop in for a little bit, and, it's always nice, if nothing else, you just give someone that concurrent view or something along those lines. But it's very hard every once in a while. It's just like, oh, I'll only chat for a little bit, and all of a sudden half an hour has gone by, and I'm completely missing all of the work that I had intended to do. So, and that's true for a number of the streamers who I like to shout out. Obviously, I don't know what everybody's tastes are, but there are definitely a lot of people who I like to be able to talk up, because these are some people who I enjoy spending the time with. When I can, at least. I know a few of you are also probably saying, it's like, you shout me out a lot, but I don't see you in the channel. And for that, I must apologize. I know we all have to sort of find our balance in terms of how much time we spend on platforms like this. So in any case, two wonderful streamers who I definitely recommend you check out. And if you don't normally see them at their times, it's still a good reason to follow, because you're not going to find out about them if you don't have those alerts set up. Now, let's see what we can do in Hush House. And by the way, if any of you are streamers and I have neglected to mention your broadcast, it may be because I don't know about it, maybe because I've forgotten about it, maybe because I get busy or distracted. So please don't feel like, I think there's a difference between... I think we've all had that moment where there's like somebody comes into a channel, it's like, hello, fellow streamer. Yeah, I was busy streaming, Fortnite today. Sure is tough being a streamer, getting an audience, right? Everybody's seen that. Nobody is convinced by it. I think there is a difference between that and somebody saying, hey, I'm kind of getting started on the streaming thing. Or, I've been streaming for a while, I've been watching your stuff for a while, and I've never seen you stop by or never seen you come into the channel. And I'm, I don't actually think it's that bad to say that, especially because I am as forgetful as anybody, possibly more so, and I definitely want the opportunity to talk up and be able to engage with some other streams, especially if you do things like the Weather Factory games, because I very often find that I'm looking to host someone in that case. All right, but I have filibustered enough, so I was trying to think about how I might make the fisherman work. And I don't think I have a lot going for me here, so I could probably bring in another 2 moon from a memory. So we go 2, 3, 5, but then I would need another 3. Well, actually, that's not impossible. So if we wind up feeding the fisherman a ham... Oh, no, not a ham. Ham is heart. But mackerel or pilchards or something like that. I'll maybe keep the mackerel just because it is helpful in its own way. But yeah, if we did pilchards and an eigengrau, we would be able to open up one of those moon rooms. So we'll spend the shilling to open up the heart-haunted room. Assistance from a fisherman. In winter, when the storms close the seas, the fishermen will offer their services for a shilling a day. Fishermen will offer moon and a little sky. Alternatively, add a soul card to find rarer guests who might be seeking employment. So, a couple of other things that I could try to do. So with Reverend Timothy, we don't have the Shapt or the Faust quite yet. So, Reverend Timothy would be a bit of an ideal candidate, because he'd be 1, then the memory would be 2, so that brings us up to 3. But the Sacramentacite's way too much to give up in that case. Maybe the Dawnlion coffee might give me the lantern that I need, though. I guess I actually need to brew it to figure out what's going on. I would have thought there was... Okay. Well, we were going to prepare some refreshments, so let's start with the Dawnlion coffee. Fire always accepts gifts and boils the kettle for tea. Dawnlion coffee, packet coffee from beyond the great deserts. Renounce or brew. If I cast an object into the fire, it will be transformed, destroyed, lost. If an item is brewable, add a soul card to brew it instead of destroying it. Have I told you about the big old ones? I think I have, but I need to be sure. Also, I wanted to share that I'm discovering the joys of electromyography. So, I'm not going to lie, Daily Daybreak. The big old ones does seem to be something that we have talked about before, but I am completely drawing a blank. So I think I'm going to need a refresher, or I'm going to need to get a lot better at faking that I know things that I don't. Hello, Selphea. Good to see you. Are you at work again? Or I notice you don't have the no view sign on. For those of you curious, by the way, Selphea is another wonderful broadcaster who has now finished my time at Sandrock. And I actually I was up early one morning. Not at work today. Well, I hope you're enjoying your day off. But I, for the life of me, cannot remember what she is currently streaming. All right, brew over the fire. Bring water to the boil. Permit the potential here to express itself. I think I'm going to draw up some water as well, because I think we're going to wind up replacing a lot of elements today. So we may do less cooking than I thought. Lower the bucket, creaking into the dark. Clanfolk, that's right. You've been playing more Clanfolk. You haven't actually settled on a next thing yet. Okay, so we're drawing up the water so that I can sort of renew my my elements of the soul in bed. We'll use the tryst with the fisherman. I'm going to need to generate a memory that gives 2 moon, but I'm going to leave that to the side here. So I guess that just leaves this whist to either make food or to earn money. I'm going to earn money with it, just because I know that I can renew the other elements of the soul over the course of the day. Now, one thing I am going to want to do is go to Crowcross Sands a lot more for the fishing, but right now we're just going to focus on sort of opening up what we can. I have carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. So we're not quite there in terms of renewing an element of the soul, but we'll get there. Ooh, a storm. Okay, that changes a lot. In winter, when the storms close the seas, the fishermen will offer their services for $1 a day. Fishermen in this part of the world have a reputation as smugglers and worse than smugglers. Those days are past, mostly, and mostly they just catch pilchards now. But they still remember the words spoken in silence to the moon and the sea. Okay, so first things first, we're going to talk about the tryst. Now, because we have the storm, this can change a few different things. So, for instance, if I have any sky or... actually, I may want to hire another fisherman because they have sky as well. So I'll be opening up the Heart-Haunted room, that's fine. But if I bring in Mr. Kill... What a shame. I can get up to 7 sky, but because I don't have the Faust, I can't cross it over to 8. Rat. So the alternative is to go down the heart route. There's no shortage of those. So Heart plus Storm is good for 5, so then I would need 3 more. So Bowls would help there. So that brings us up to 6. Then we would need 2 more Heart, which we can get from Ham. Okay, so we are going to hire Mr. Kill. So the D&D game you're in, the captain of the guard accidentally referred to the great old ones as the big old ones, which has led to the discussion of the range of sizes of unfathomable eldritch beings that might actually be found in. For example, my warlock's patron seems to be a medium old one. You may actually rather like one of the books in here, though. I don't think we have it yet, but I'm actually going to take the time to look it up, just because it is an amusing title. I like this one. So I have it in my other playthrough, so it shouldn't be that hard for me to find. I think it's a forge text. I have a spreadsheet of these things, but it's not always easy. There we are. It's a lantern text. Opus Magnum Caeruleum. Ambrose Westcott used to render the title of this venerable and anonymous work mockingly as The Big Blue Business. A kinder translation would be The Great Work in Azure. So when you talked about the big old ones, it immediately made me think of The Big Blue Business as a translation for The Great Work in Azure, or Opus Magnum Caeruleum. So, one thing I tremendously appreciate about Book of Hours, and actually Cultist, this is present in all of this writer's work, the Alexis Kennedy. It is very well written, and it is very, it deals with serious stuff, the sort of stuff that you would consider to be, appropriate for heavy topics, heavy games. But it never gets in the way of being able to have a laugh. There's always not just funny bits, but genuinely funny. Genuinely, I'm really glad I read that kind of moments. So it's one thing that I appreciate, but I don't know. I don't ever feel I really give enough credit to the games for doing this. I think in this case I'm actually also going to bring in... No, actually we can afford to recycle at the Sweet Bones for a bit. So help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug and not everyone here knows their letters. So he isn't granted power directly by his patron, rather his patron feeds him secret and lost knowledge in exchange for his service. So he is mechanically a wizard, but his eldritch benefactor buys his textbooks. That is a very charming way of setting up that character, Daily Daybreak. I don't know how much you have played of Cultist Simulator or Book of Hours, but I feel like this is a game that might speak to some of your interests. Steam and scent both rise. It's ready. Dawnland coffee pot, coffee from beyond the great deserts. So that we're going to use with Mr. Kill when the time, or sorry, with Reverend Timothy when the time comes. We're not ready to restore the Fett yet. I guess technically we are, because I could pour the Isle water, actually. Maybe we will do that after all. Serve appropriately. Pour out. Poured out. I do want to try and make the most of the day if I can. I could settle in for a nap with a cup of something warming or a glass of something soothing. Add something restorative like a beverage or fresh linen to restore your soul card without waiting overnight. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Anybody who does have questions about this, I know Selphea has long wanted to get a better grip on Book of Hours, and I keep promising to explain it, and then I get really wrapped up in the game. But now is a really good time if you're interested to ask questions, because we're about to start going into some of the new content for the expansion that will be coming out in September, but we're not so deep into the game that it's sort of impossible to catch up. So if you want, I can even go from the very beginning in terms of who this character is and what our motivations are, why we're doing certain things and all of that. But right now... Wait a minute. Where'd I put the... Right, the tryst was with the fisherman. Okay, let's keep going. So what I had originally planned with the fisherman was fisherman tryst, which we have. We don't have the memory yet. Oh, I should actually make sure I have all of this. So drink is worth 1. Food should be worth 2. So let's just double check that those pilchards are ready to go. Pickled pilchards, an acquired and unforgettable taste. All right, let's hand them over. Offer something to eat. I can offer my assistants something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. Give you lore. So, what I will start with is that this game, the world of this game is divided into a number of principles, and I'll talk about the principles as we go by. I don't have all of them yet. But if you ever had to take a philosophy course, and if you talked about Plato and the idea of the forms, that could be one way of looking at it. There are sort of these fundamental ideas lying underneath the world that sort of govern them, and they are associated with different hours, but the hours are distinct from principles. In fact, even trying to explain what the hours are is a whole other business. But one of the things that I like about this game is that the original game in the series was called Cultist Simulator. And in Cultist Simulator, it is like, there is a very often I will find people having this very unfair kind of perspective on the title, where they sort of think that it's basically sort of riffing off of Goat Simulator, and that it's just a representation of a really unfortunate time in terms of game titling. And my view is that, again, I know I've said this before, but like, take it up with Goat Simulator, which has nothing to do with simulating goats. It does simulate physics, but not goats. Whereas Cultist Simulator is a game where in your very first session, you play someone who works at a hospital, and you are sort of tending to this patient who dies, and you get a letter from their solicitor, and this journal, which basically describes your dreams perfectly, and it sort of gives the address of another person who shows similar potential and a mysterious bookshop. And that's it, right? Everything else is just a sort of a hint in terms of what's going on. And you're sort of left to figure that out. And my usual sort of description here is to say that, there is no deep mysteries or, secrets lying underneath the skin of the world for dummies book. It's something that you need to sort of figure out on your own. And there has been lots of work over almost the entire human existence to try and answer some of the questions that are coming up related to some of this cult activity. But one central idea from Cultist Simulator is sort of this tension between the mundane world and, the world that expects you to pay rent and, have food in your belly and things like that. And this world of dream, the Mansus, quite literally a world of dream in this case. But this could also be, the game that you want to make, or the play you want to write, or the performance that you want to give. There's lots of different individual motivators that we have. It's actually very funny to me. I've had a few different cases where I've switched between careers. And one of the bigger ones was to go from film to economics. And I remember someone saying to me, it's like, you're turning your back on your dreams. Whereas to me, it was like, I've done the film thing. I am actually fascinated by this whole econ thing. And of course, I don't even, my job title isn't even economist anymore. So to a certain extent, I quote unquote turn my back on my dreams yet again. But there's always that new level of knowledge. There's always that new, deeper understanding that you want to hit. I'm very, very happy where I am. And so, sometimes these are things that, even your friends are not necessarily going to be able to understand. Although at least in the case of the film thing, I think a few people kind of figured out thought that I was somehow that they could somehow circumvent, building their own career because they knew a guy, and I'm simply not that influential. So I think that was a little bit of the turning. It wasn't so much turning my back on my dreams as perhaps turning my back on their dreams, but that's a separate conversation. So what's interesting, though, is that in the world of Cultist Simulator, you have, even though there may be this tension between the mundane world and and sort of this world of dream, the Mansus and the House of the Moon, House of the Sun, those sorts of things, everyday life still has these echoes of these underlying principles. They have sort of they touch on these things. Again, this is where sort of the forms sort of make sense, if you know that. And I mean, again, just the fact is that Plato, perhaps more so through Neoplatonists like Plotinus, definitely had a heavy influence on later mystics, on some of the things that we normally associate with sort of cults and secret societies. So it's hard to avoid that kind of thinking. It's hard to be in mathematics and avoid that kind of thinking, frankly. But one of the things that I really like about Cultist Simulator, it's a little bit of a harder game. It's definitely much more willing to fail you, whereas Book of Hours sort of takes place in this magical library. It's very isolated. And so it's sometimes hard for me to point out that, you have these different items. So for instance, you have the Fractured Mirror, which is both a lantern and knock. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But to a certain extent, then you have Baron Silence's astrolabe. Well, Baron Silence, this is the one who Hush House is named after. And all of these are sort of figures that seem to know a little bit more than just a normal person does. That Hush House winds up being one of these libraries under the Watchman's Tree. And so to a certain extent, every object here is sort of imbued with this potential. It's something special. And so it's maybe a little bit harder to point out that even commonplace things actually wind up participating in these principles. Whereas in the case of something like Cultist Simulator, you'll have reason, and that has the lantern aspect, as opposed to passion, which has the moth aspect. And that can be a fun way of looking at the world. So I talked a lot there, Daily Daybreak, and I'm going to... well, not just Daily, obviously anybody who's interested in that lore. I am actually going to talk about the principles, but Salfea also asked a question. So having set the table in terms of the setting and sort of the principles, I'm actually going to talk a bit about the principles and the powers in this game, and we will move back into what they specifically are. So Salfea says, I usually have streams open while I do other things, so I still haven't wrapped your head around what kind of game this is. I thought it was like a card deck combined sort of thing that act as recipes, but you were talking about hiring people, and did you just put an item in the shelf in a room? So honestly, I have no idea. Don't aim your content at me. Well, no, that's fine. I mean, because the one thing I have learned from TAing is that if one person in the class asks the question, then there were probably about 15 people who had that. And sorry, hello, Tiberiosity. How are you doing? I saw you doing Final Fantasy last. I hope that's still going well for you. Actually, I shouldn't say still going well, because I think you had a complaint with it last time, but I hope it's going well for you. So the best way to think of this, Selfie, is that the game uses cards to represent certain things. But this is definitely a sort of a crafting RPG as much as anything. So the cards represent things, and definitely you combine cards to produce certain effects. So for instance, I combined the packet of coffee with an element of the soul in a fireplace to brew coffee. And there will be some other things that I do. So for instance, I'm currently talking with this fisherman that I did in fact hire so that I could boost their moon aspect. And the moon aspect is going to be used to open up one of the rooms of the house, the Heart-Haunted Room. Because in the end, we were hired as the librarian to Hush House, which was closed after a fire 7 years ago. And part of the story is, we kind of wash up on the beach after a shipwreck. Our journal is waterlogged. The library is boarded up. And we spend time sort of restoring ourselves, restoring our journal, restoring Hush House, and learning more about the house, learning more about... You brew coffee with water. Is that what you're doing wrong? Yes, well, I think the water is implied, but you use an element of the soul. You use something of yourself to be able to take actions in the game. So I don't think need to think you need to cut your palm and make a sacrifice to the bean gods to get the proper cup of coffee. Although don't let me stop you from trying. So in this case here, the cards definitely do a good job of helping make sense of the world, right? So in this case, the knowledge that I have is represented through cards, and my elements of the soul, my whist, my tryst, my heart, and such, are represented through cards, as are my memories. But part of the game is just the sheer process of exploring the house and, eating food and examining different items. And so I don't want to give the impression that this is a purely card-driven game. Cultist Simulator, in fact, is a much more card-driven game. So an element of the soul is like having the spoons. That's actually not a bad way of putting it, Daily Daybreak. I've always sort of kept that at arm's length, because this is probably more of a story about the individuals that I've run into. But the first time I ever ran into that example, it was with someone who first explained it to me, and I appreciated the explanation. And the thing that I found so troubling about that was it felt at a certain point that it kind of became almost a limiting factor, that it was sort of I can't do this because there's this finite quantity or something like that. And to a certain extent, obviously everybody has their own lives, and so that's what it is. And clearly I think there is a point where you need to be compassionate and understanding with people. So if you have a friend that doesn't go out with you, it's not necessarily because of like a personal grudge or something like that. They may just be completely exhausted because there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on in their life. I want to be careful with that. But one of the difficulties that I found was that it was almost like this frontier of possibilities was sort of foreclosed on because of this idea. And it was one that I was always sort of, I was a little uncomfortable with, just because my hope for that individual was that they would both not exert themselves to a point where they were exhausted, but that they would still live as full of a life as they could. So it was one that I've always sort of recoiled a little bit when I hear that example, just because it was one that to me at the time was actually quite a negative one that made me feel quite sad for my friend. But I also recognize its ability to sort of explain a very real difficulty that people are running into. And you're absolutely right that with the elements of the soul, that is absolutely something that you do need to decide what kinds of actions you're going to to come up with. Yeah, and Selfie is more or less coming to the point that I find difficult when I try and talk about this, is that I don't want it to come off as dismissive, because I'm sort of aware, but just for the benefit of those who are maybe listening to the channel. The spoon theory came about to help those with neurodivergence or anxiety or mental health disorders explain why they may not be able to do things like a normal person might expect in a day. So it makes sense that it might be used in the sense, I'm limited by this resource. Yes, I definitely agree. I think the difference that I have here, and I think I'm probably not doing a very good job of explaining, and it's why I very often avoid talking about this, is that I have often found for myself that there can be a benefit to understanding where you are and the conditions that you're in. And especially that also comes down to interacting with people and understanding where they're coming from, right? Because clearly expecting people to be you is a very easy way to become very frustrated and to be definitely a rather negative influence on another negative presence for other people. But the one thing that I've also wanted to be careful about, and this is just because, for my own case, right, I've had no shortage of either things telling me what I'm limited to do, or people very happy to tell me my limitations or what I can and can't do. And my hope has always been that you acknowledge the realities of your situation, so that you can achieve sort of the best result for yourself, so that you can achieve that thing that you want, or so that you can be who you want to become. And obviously, this is not there's lots of different ways that you can sort of, make this a problem, right? So it's like, you can't tell, I don't know, a 65-year-old that they're going to become a professional, like an NBA basketball player, right? There's a certain point at which, the realities of the situation are going to, there's some hard limits that you're up against. But another example that I might give would be, I'll actually maybe take one that I think this example I think will sort of rub people the wrong way, but I think it's sufficiently divorced from the specific that we're talking about that I think I might be able to maybe help bridge that gap. But this idea, which I do not subscribe to, in case anybody misunderstands, of, if there is some kind of diversity quota, or if there's some kind of hiring standard, I'm now disadvantaged at a job, right? Because the wokes are hiring the wokes, I'm not gonna move up. Now, clearly there is nothing about that. To a certain extent, if there's a finite number of jobs and there's now some level where you're not going to meet the qualification, then in a strictly literal sense, that yes, the number of jobs is smaller than it was. But of course, that does not have anything to do with how one conducts oneself at work. That doesn't have anything to do with what other opportunities someone might have, because there are very few jobs where people absolutely have to be at that one firm forever, and that is the best place that they can possibly be. There's obviously a lot of other ways around that particular issue, and again, that is not intended to be some sort of knock against hiring practices and so on and so forth. I'm using this specifically as an example that I think most people have a common view on. And that's always the difference that I've wanted to drive, which is that I think I've always found the idea I've liked, because I think, as you say, it's good for helping to bridge a gap between people who are encountering something that's maybe different from what others do, like others have, and it helps bridge that understanding. And the thing that has always made me feel quite bad is that I've very often also seen it used as I don't think excuse is quite the word that I'm looking for, but I've often found that it has become something where someone says, it's almost like it's like the NBA example, right? I'm not going to be able to do this because I have a limited number of spoons, rather than I have this finite resource and I need to use it well, right? Because there's two different ways you can look at that. One can say, this is this limitation. This is the thing that I am working against. And because these are so precious, I am going to spend them on the things that I really value or that I have to do, right? And that is aimed towards achieving your best life, doing what you can, doing the things that maybe in the future will give you more spoons. Again, I'm speaking for situations that I don't necessarily find myself in, so I don't want to speak too far in terms of what people's capabilities are, because I also imagine that we are speaking of an analogy, and of course everybody has their individual circumstances. And what I've often found, at least in terms of the limited encounters that I've had, is that really nice tool for empathy I found sometimes became this idea that, I'm never going to be more than ... because I only have so many spoons. And I've always found that such a sad way of looking at that, because I've never thought for those people that they have ever been people of limited capability. I think that it would be fair by their own admission that they're facing a limitation, but that's different from being limited capability people. And I've always wondered how you can move from the one world of saying that, I'm not going to amount to much because I have this limitation, as opposed to I have this limitation, and so let's make the most of it. So hopefully, I am not above criticism. I think if people found that was very callous or unhelpful, obviously you can speak up, but I'm hoping that I communicated the dilemma that I have. And Delude here says, I understand there's a balance that's hard to strike sometimes between not going too far from your comfort zone and letting yourself be restricted by your comfort zone. Yeah, I mean, I always tried to avoid terms like comfort zone just because I don't want to imply, I maybe this is, again, just the company that I keep. I can see how some people might think that that's an implied accusation of saying that people are lazy. But to bring it back to the topic, just because, again, that was really just kind of a throwaway line on something that I had encountered. Oh, you know what? I didn't need to give up the Pilchards. I could have used the Armagnac d'Ise here, but no, I actually think in this case. So I just wanted to say, it's like, oh yeah, that was one that I've always had a little. I think what I'm really trying to communicate here is that it's one where, because of that particular idiosyncratic experience I've had of it, is actually a very helpful analogy that is. I've been blind to, essentially, because of that background. But no, it's actually quite a good way of putting it, right? That you have this constraint on your energy, or however you'd like to put it. And of course, it just winds up doing other things. So hopefully, like I said, I'm hoping I didn't just create a small riot against me on the point. Okay, sorry. I'm going to need to... And sorry, Olaf, I don't know if I said hi to you or not, or if I'm tangling myself up in words. I almost finished my tea, and I kind of want some more. Okay, so hopefully, Sylphea, I gave a little bit of a gesture to some of your questions there, but I think some of this will unpack in a little bit. I did want to give a little more lore to Delude before we unpause, because I actually have some tricky decisions to make in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about how the world is divided. So we have, or even a constraint on your soul. Well, yeah, definitely this would be considered the 9 parts of the human soul. So this is sort of inspired by Egyptian myth, but there's only so much you can pour yourself into in daily tasks, no matter how much you might be willing. I agree completely. So, and again, I don't mean to. I think the spoons analogy is a perfectly good one. I probably just didn't need to burden the chat with my own little weirdness. But there we have it. It's been said. I can't unsay it. But in this case here, you're recovering from a shipwreck as well, right? So you're sort of rebuilding yourself. But in this case, the first part of the soul that we had was our wist. Well, actually, I guess our first was our health, but the health isn't currently available. So, name, memory, that part which remains. Most librarians know that books have souls. Most librarians hope for books with simple souls of wist and nothing else. So, wist is composed of a little bit of lantern. Life is a pure flame, and we live by an invisible sun within us. Thomas Brown, lantern is the principle of the secret place, sometimes called the House of the Sun, and of the light above it. And it is more dominated by winter, which has no words, because it is the principle of silence, of endings, and of those things that are not quite dead. Now, we were talking a little bit about Nock. So we've got the fractured mirror, again, the principle of the secret place, sometimes called the House of the Sun and the light above it. But we also have Nock. The principle of Nock permits no seal and no isolation. It thrusts us gleefully out of the safety of ignorance. Nock opens doors and unseams barriers. And so, whenever you see wounds or perhaps cracks, there's a degree of Nock there. What are some of the others we have? So we've got Forge. Fire, I once read, is the principle that warms and the spring that consumes. The principle of Forge transforms and destroys. That was another Forge one. We've got Heart here. The heart relentless beats to protect the skin of the world we understand. The heart is the principle that continues and preserves. So some of the hours related to heart, incidentally, could be the Witch and Sister. The Witch and Sister unites what is at rest. She is sought at the water's edge and beneath the moon. She cannot be separated. She cannot be touched. She is coral, amber, pearl. The Thunderskin. He cannot be stilled. He demands the dance. He is beaten like a drum. He is heard in the wood below the world. I will actually also mention here we've got Grail, hunger, lust, the drowning waters. The principle of Grail honors both the birth and the feast. The Velvet, the glory is the question, and the moth always answers yes. The Velvet's answer is no, and that is always her answer. And the Sister and Witch brings together what cannot be apart. She is sought beneath the moon at the water's edge. She is pearl, amber, coral. She cannot be touched. She cannot be separated. Moth. I knew a man who captured moths in a bell jar. On nights like this, he would release them one by one to die in the candle. Moth is the wild and perilous principle of chaos and yearning. Now, we haven't talked about Edge yet. Lacquered bone chess set, born of battles. All conquest occurs at Edge. One who dwells there is blind and cannot be wounded. Another is strong and grows stronger. Edge is the principle of battle and of struggle. Hey, no worries, Delude. So I can leave some of the others, but this is an example here where all of the different items, all of the different things you encounter in the world are imbued with some level of these principles. And so finding them out is one of the ways that you sort of move through the game and figure things out. But have a good evening, Delude. It was a pleasure to chat with you. All right, so I'm going to make a little more progress. Again, the day's sort of been disrupted by the way that the opportunities came, but it's not a terrible situation to be in. I do want to catalog these books sooner rather than later, but we don't get a storm every day, so the sustenance has boosted their aspects appropriately. So let's give them the Eigengrau. If Graydon oil were drinkable. So an example that I'll take here, Selphea, to answer your earlier question in terms of the card. So for this case, this is something that I actually created a little bit earlier. And I brewed this Eigengrau. It has a moon aspect. Secrets are soft, night is softer still, and the sea speaks. It is not always wise to listen. So I've been trying to level up this fisherman, their moon aspect. So in this case, by giving them the Eigengrau, I can offer my assistant something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. So there are other combinations that I could have done here, but in this case, just a very simple representation. You know, we're sharing a drink with the fisherman that we hired, and that takes 30 seconds in the talk verb. Whereas here, I went to the Sweet Bones, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So we earn 6 for that. Rest and refreshments. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. So we'll pay the innkeeper. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the Sweet Bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. And in this case, I'm actually going to speak with my friend Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. And just to be clear here, I knew to do this because it accepts an element of the soul. The human soul is composed of 9 elements, and this is one. Most other things have simpler souls. It'll accept Grail or Winter, and it can't be fatigued or have a malady. So Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. A tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. A little water splashes on to the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Okay, so the Sweet Bones is already occupied. We are still working on restoring our FET, so in 32 seconds. Now I'm going to use that to generate the moon memory that I need. I also need to remember what I was going to do with Mr. Right, it was the Storm Kitchen Bowls. I think I do need to restore the health too. Down to the Grussians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately, so we'll first of all talk with Mr. Kill about the storm, talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. So my hope was originally to talk with my my assistants, but I just have too much to do at this point. One thing I could do to make my life a little bit easier is rather than use the heart, I could just pour a glass of Isle water. I think I'll actually use the Isle water for Mr. Kill after all. I deserved a little quiet time. Okay, so we will take that FET. I'll get a confounding parable just in case it winds up being, I wind up being unlucky and get something different. So here we'll read portions and proportions. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Better now. Okay, I think we can actually just do help with letters at this point. So I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. So we will give Mr. Kill the kitchen bowls. Cake time. I can lend my assistant something to help increasing their abilities. Actually, I think I need to bring the health back anyway. I'm making... Nope, I'm still good. This tool has boosted their aspects appropriately, so we're now going to bring Mr. Kill a ham. Taste will remain reliably unchanged for many years to come, which is, in some respects, an advantage. Offer something to eat. I can offer my assistant something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. The Locksmith's Dream, Portions and Proportions, the second volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Galmier records fewer dreams and explicates more of her own elaborate theories. We see this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar, and I think there is a secret that all these artisans know, but I think that secret is only half the story. So this is a confounding parable. The moth, the grail, and the egg unhatching all tell different stories of the world's beginning. One of those stories is the oldest, but it may not be the first, Abbess Nona. So this was so that we can get our extra moon to give to the fisherman. We'll use that to open up the heart-haunted room right away. Or, well, we'll use it right away, and we will open up the heart-haunted room when we can. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So here I will bring back the heart, but I don't, or health, but I don't think I'm going to be able to go any further. Sustenance has boosted their aspects appropriately, so let's talk with the fisherman about the confounding parable so we can get that out of the way right away. And you know what? I didn't need to give up the heart in that case. That's a little bit of a shame, but I'll make do. I guess I could just work and make the money, but because that will allow me to buy more ingredients for cooking. One challenge with cooking is that I really only have my health to deploy there, so memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. So, the heart-haunted room. The light in this room dims in pulses of sunset red over and over, in half-heard heartbeat that matches the crashing of the waves below. I'll need careful exorcism from someone attuned to these influences. Okay, now let's just double check. So I can open the maze-crazed room, I can open the wounded room. Reverend Timothy, I think, will take care of the shrouded stair. And I could actually try and take the Root Throng descent, but I don't think that's the one I want to go for. So let's start with the maze-crazed room. Oh, and we want to talk with Mr. Kill. And in this case, I will give him the water. From Grandkrug's Deep Springs. I can offer my assistant something to drink. And yeah, in this case I will restore the health just to use it to earn a little bit more money, because I do want to, if I can, I would like to translate that into some more ingredients. Better now. Manual labor. There is not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 worth of odd jobs. So, down to the Grushans. We're up to 8 heart. So, I will talk with Mr. Kill just because it only takes 30 seconds. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. And that gives me some time just to have the heart-haunted room opened up. So, for tomorrow, I think I want to sort of mark off the time for the heart. What I might do is I might make something at the kitchen range with the heart for starters, then use the water to restore the heart in the morning, and then draw up some more water in the afternoon. I think that might be the better way to handle it. Oh dear, more boxes. So, stores. At the time of the Prayer Book Rebellion in 1549, Hendrik used this room as a prison cell for unfortunate locals, including the cunning man and rebel ringleader Red William, who had boasted of the curse placed on Hendrik's heirs. There will be no 7th of his line. There is a story told in Brandkrug village that Hendrik came to speak with the imprisoned William in person. There will be no 2nd of your line, he told him, and had him gelded here in this very cell and cast into the darkness of the caves below the house. There is another story that Ava de Wolf once answered an importunate suitor by bringing him here to this room and pointing out a stain upon the stones. So here we have the Cucurbit Barrette, a vessel with an ambiguous history. This is the edge tool that we were looking for, although of course now that we have a saw, we have more than one edge tool. TRN limited drinking cocoa, so we can put that on the shelves. Guess we'll put the tea on one side, the cocoa on another. 2 boxes of rarities. Schloss Jannings, a dry aromatic white wine. Skinshuck Mead, a murky, sweet-smelling liquid crowded with sediment. We're running out of space. A basket of towels, suitable companion for bathing, a bolt of moss green velvet, more Eigengrau if Greydon oil were drinkable, paint palest blue, snow is not quite this color, Isle water, that'll actually be helpful, we'll use that to restore elements of the soul, a hurricane lamp, proof against storm, wind, and moth swoop alike, a saw, kerosene and paraffin, steel wire, the Colonel's metal, scintillant oil, Cater and Hero's finest scintillant oil, contraband jetsam, flung overboard in furtive haste, and slim parcel, carefully wrapped in brown paper. We also have glue, a substance that ensures the continued proximity of things to other things. Finally, we have yellow paint. This paint is nothing like the sun. Pink, people are never this colors. I always wondered, by the way, if this is a Shakespeare, a riff off of this paint. I'm sorry, if this line is a riff off of Shakespeare, right? My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. It's one of the... I like it as far as a sonnet. It's a fun one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we will take some time and read some Shakespeare. Pink, people are never this color. Bosque green, the wood is probably not this color. Green, trees are rarely this color. And dusk blue, this paint is the precise color of the Atlantic Ocean at 4 o'clock on a clear afternoon. All right. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So the revelation would be kind of nice to have with Reverend Timothy, except that I don't have a way of carrying it overnight with me. So I can keep trying and talk. I can keep trying to talk with Mr. Kill. I was changing my stream game, and I saw someone who was streaming Book of Hours, and I was like, I bet that's System Jock. For those of you who do not know Prosciutto Fist is one of the other broadcasters who streams Book of Hours, has actually just recently gotten back into it. I believe is starting her 3rd game, playing as the Executioner. But Book of Hours was actually how I first found Prosciutto Fist, and I'm very, very fond of them as a broadcaster. She's done... Baldur's Gate 3, she has done... Why can I not remember? Is Baldur's Gate 3 and Book of Hours in my mind, but Sunhaven was actually one that I wound up buying because of her. And she is really taken to Godless, which delighted me. That is another, formerly associated with Brace Yourself through Brace Yourself Publishing, now an independently published game. But again, a broadcaster who's really wonderful. Actually, somebody who's also responsible for Viridian kind of coming into my orbit, somebody who I'm also fond of seeing hang out. But definitely I recommend checking out Prosciutto Fist, because Baldur's Gate 3 consumed your stream, unfortunately. I like to think of it as the other RPG starting with B that came out this year. Anyways, if you have any questions, Pro, now's a good time to ask, because I haven't committed any skills yet, and this is how far I got in Hush House. I'm not trying to say anything, but you know. The maze-crazed room. Wires are strung tightly and crazily through this room, snaring the bed legs to the window latches to the wardrobe handles. Every movement brings a ripple of musical pings. I'll need time and patience to unravel. You're not bad, you're learning. I think you are a little harsh on yourself for this game. But I hope you like it. Dusk. Night is fallen, dawn will come soon. So we really only have the solace that we can rest on, but now that night is fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So it'd be nice to hang on to the revelation, but we have only so many things that we can do, so... Again, I actually think while that did bring me on a digression, I actually do think the spoon analogy is a good one for Elements of the Soul. I may wind up using that. The servants' quarters, south. When Hendrik de Wolf left behind the life of a mercenary, he appointed his quartermaster as head of his new household. This would have drawn little comment, except that his quartermaster was a woman, the soft-spoken, steely-willed Ernestine Peterhans. For more than 5 decades, these rooms were her unchallenged domain. Even in her 80th year, she still walked her rounds every day, and the servants would fall silent at the distant jingle of her keys. So, more packages, a slim parcel, and contraband jetsam. We have a number of beds, the servants' quarters, narrow but comfortable, that's a heart bed, and a basket of clean linen. For those of you curious who we are playing, we have the Silverbound Journal. I was rich, but something was missing. I am no longer rich, and still something is missing. Hush House is a place of conclusions, and here as librarian, I may find mine. The magnate came to the house to conclude a history where they will find peace, but you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Hushery wisdom. Memory's the magnate. I've lived too long, but I'm not ready to die. I've tasted everything, and it wasn't enough. Give me silence, give me peace, give me the peace of snow. Okay, so we don't know what is coming up yet, but we are going to use the Wisp to help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. What is it about Book of Hours has it out for your personality? What are you just you don't like being the executioner? I mean, some of the more interesting characters in this are ex-cops. Oh, this character's not immortal. Well, maybe he is mortal, but you know, the Twiceborn, you know. It's not my fault that I have a better personality, I'm just saying. Alright. Let's catalog some books. Let's actually get the odd one out here, so. Solar Period book. Catalog a Solar Period book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s and 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. I was like, you have the skin of a killer, Bella. I should actually take a minute here. So I know I read the description for this room, but I don't recall if I actually read the description for this one. And this is actually a really interesting one. So, the chancel of the Abbey Church, the Church of the Unconquered Sun, acknowledges only a handful of hours, the sun in rags or splendor, the Menascate, the Madrugad, the Watchman, and reluctantly the Wolf Divided. Any other so-called hours must be lesser powers, wicked impostors, or superstitions. So the Church denies 2 of the 3 hours of the chancel, and yet it's the chancel who are said to determine which of their peers qualify as hours. That's theology for you. Abbot Geoffrey decreed that all 3 should be venerated in this holiest of rooms. To avoid actual heresy, he would not permit any of the 3 to be named. That's theology too. So for those who played Cultist Simulator, reading that line, you might be familiar with why these would be the particular hours worshipped. So the Church of the Unconquered Sun, we know we have the Sun in Splendor. The Sun in Splendor was divided in the Intercalate, and essentially it was split into 4. The Watchman, Menascate, Sun in Rags, and the Madrugad. But there is also the idea that the Wolf Divided is the Sun's wound, which is why, reluctantly, right? Because this is sort of an admission that the Sun ain't what it used to be. But there's also some detail. So I don't believe the chancel has been mentioned except in Book of Hours. So this was a new idea. So it says, so the Church denies 2 of the 3 hours of the chancel. and yet it's the Chancel who are said to determine which of their peers qualify as hours. Now, the Chancel gets mentioned in a few other places, but the simple idea here that there is something that determines what is an hour and what isn't already makes that important. And so we have an idea here that one of the hours of the Chancel, and we have some hints here through the Moth, the Winter, and Edge. We do not name these hours, but we acknowledge that together they are the Chancel, the Cruciate, the Road. And so we know that one of the three would be the Sun and Rags or Splendor, Menescape, Madrigad, Watchman, or possibly the Wolf Divided, and that the other two would not be found among them. I believe the Mare in the Tree is one of them as well, which I was very reluctant to admit, but eventually got dragged over to it. But this is kind of an example of a mystery that you get present in the house, but it actually takes you sort of reading the books and engaging with the ideas of the game to really be able to piece apart. And I don't know if there's been like a firm determination in terms of the Chancel, because there is just enough room to sort of allow for a couple of different interpretations. I don't know if that's a mystery that's definitively solved within the context of the game, or if people need to say it's very likely that it is X, Y, or Z, but it's not firmly determined. I haven't read far enough in terms. I've got my own views on that, but I haven't read far enough in what other people say about the game. Also, it was a Solar Period book, so if you want to know more about the periods, the Solar Gothic period, from the 11th to the early 16th century, the Sisters and Brothers of St. Brendan's dwelt on the Isle. It was a holy place, a wealthy place, and a centre of learning, though a surprisingly obscure one. Then, in 1534, the Bronze King Henry dissolved the foundation, exiled the Brethren, and gave the Isle to the family de Wolf. Fancy Zed? Sorry, I think I'm missing reference here. Fancy Zed, Fancy Zed. I'm sorry, Pro. I think I'm missing the reference. Okay, now I wanted to get baking. So maybe not baking, but so we've got a few different items that we can make. We can make the potatoes. We can make a meringue. We can make. Actually, maybe that's a good idea here. Instead of making something like a main or something like that, let's actually see what our options are when it comes to. When it comes to like the meringue and the dough. Oh, because I didn't say, well, yeah, because it's Zed. Make poire belle Hélène, a dish with Grail. Oh, interesting. Sorry, I need to move a couple things. It has got to be so much fun to do research for a game like this. Respect my yeah culture. You know, Pro, you might actually know this bit of history, so I'm kind of curious. Do you know where the lyrics to the Stars and Stripes, your national anthem, come from? Okay. Drippings? No. Yes, you only in. So it doesn't have to be the. It doesn't have to be this specific kitchen. You could do it in the jail, and you can do it in the Dawn Period caverns, but you can only cook at the proper stoves. Pear and mackerel. Okay. I am curious about this, but I'm not going to go... Oh, actually, you know what makes everything better? Booze. Really? Can't add wine? Okay, so let's make a meringue. Can't go wrong with a meringue. Hen's egg, delicious when cooked, alarming when dropped. Make meringue, an ingredient for a higher purpose. Okay, so we've got a Tryst and a Whist to play with. We're already making money at the Sweet Bones. I think at this point, so I would like to go to Crowcross Sands, but let's see what the weather brings before I go too much further for today. Snow, sky, and winter. All right, let's think about what we want to try and do with today. I still don't think the snow's going to push us over the edge for... actually, it would be good for making Solomon's preparation, though. Yeah, best I can do is 6 winter, so... let's see if I can make something of the... Or actually one more than I need to be, but I'll live with that. So muddle and mix a wintry preparation. Quenchings and quellings with scholar level winter plus flour create Solomon's preparation. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. Still nothing to do with the occult scrap, I'm afraid, but... And I think because we've used up the... weather, let's use the Tryst. Oh, actually, I was going to go beachcombing, but probably it'd be better for me to open up some packages here, so... Investigate. Something small and curious. Crack open the container. Delight in your discovery. Alright, well, what I was going to try and share the deep respect I have, not just for the Yeehaw culture, but the shared culture between our two great nations. The Defense of Fort McHenry is a poem that was written during the War of 1812. Now, Canadians get very annoying about the War of 1812 because that is the one where the White House was burned down. But that was not like a victory for Canada or the British. It was a stalemate. It was a really big problem, actually, that the two regions went to war. But basically, the Defense of Fort McHenry was a battle. Or a poem written during a battle at Fort McHenry, where there was, I think, this British sort of blockade. I mean, basically the poem's like, you see that flag over there? You're bombing it all day, and no matter what you did, that was still there. So screw you. And everybody's like, that would make a pretty good anthem. So they did. Now you have it. I would also point out that there was a time when the two regions, you know, what would eventually become the United States of America and Canada, went to war. And it has its origins in a certain captain named George kind of being sent on a mission, getting rained on a whole lot, and him kind of freaking out and accidentally killing a bunch of people and winding up signing a rather poorly translated document which effectively has him confess to murder, which was not exactly what the intention was. And this eventually led to the 7 Years' War, also known as the French and Indian War, which would very fairly be thought of as World War Zero. Probably, I think that has a good candidate for the actual First World War. It's also one of the first times when a war in the colonies wound up engulfing the continent. And so, while there might be really cool things like Assassin's Creed Rogue and national anthems that happen when Canada and the US fight, it's usually a good idea that they don't, because apparently everything else gets wrapped up in it. So, but what I'm trying to say here is that we are also capable of lobbing bombs, and we were so good at it that you decided to make a national anthem around that. So, you know, it all evens out in the end. Let's do the box of rarities. I don't even have any elements of the soul to recover. I guess I can bring the water over and pour it out, though. Serve appropriately. Pour out. And the Wind's Ruin. So it has bloodlines. If I open this book at the right page, I find words that slowly ooze blood. Over time, those words increase in number. This infestation can affect your Arab and core. Don't have them. And spread to nearby objects. You can remove it with a skill that's effective against infestations and at least 7 moth. Now, this is a bit of a shame because this is a pretty easy book to read. And it does give me Applebright Euphonies, but we're going to put that in a locker. Pour it out. Bridge, we are not savages here. I'll put the meringue on the bridge. An ingredient for a higher purpose. Look at that. Add to milk for a legendary dessert, or with spicing, add to apples or pears, even to mushrooms if you're feeling perverse. Okay, well, they know what I'm into. We made our first meringue. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Rest and refreshment. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. And we will restore the health as well. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. I forgot you have the silver-bound journal. I really liked playing the Twiceborn, but I do actually kind of like the Legacy you got Pro, so I'm sort of curious. You had to mute for a phone call a million years ago. Unmute to you sounding like a real Nani sounded. If I was talking about the If I was, out of curiosity, if you were talking about the silver bound, that was me quoting Pro. If I was going on about the War of 1812, that's all me. That Bill guilty is charged. But good to have you back, Selphea. We actually just made our first meringue, coming from the early beta of House of Light. Oh, make a veggie pie. Oh, sorry. It was in the it was in Nami. Sorry, Nami. Sorry, I totally missed out. Yes, it is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones of the beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Oh, did Chipotle introducing the new bug burrito? That's cool. Sorry, Chipotle? Where'd I put that doll? A pale mommet, a gently twitching little cloth doll with melancholy button eyes and a frill of colored ribbons. Oh, I don't think it's going to go there. Nope. Well, we'll just have the pale mommet sort of stare at us while we sleep. Did you, though? Yeah, Pro has the execution. Oh, that's Sevenfold Slaying. Oh man, I like this one, but we don't have the money for it. So the Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled, an account of the destruction of a primeval hour, a god who was stone. We'll have to talk about that one later, I guess. But yeah, so I want to make dough as well to see what are some of the other goodies that we can make, because I am eventually going to eventually we're going to invite some people over. With keeper level winter, Solomon's preparations are a precursor to the great ink Nillikant. Solomon Husher would take this every night without fail before sleep to close his ears to the sound of the waves. But on the 9th of January, 1838, a heavy snow fell on Hush House. When the other residents dug themselves out, Husher was nowhere to be found. He had left a resignation letter and an undrunk measure of his preparation. This is my noms. Although I think I yap too much to be a true disciple of Winter. For those of you who don't know, this is another feature of Book of Hours. So the Curia of the Isle is long gone. Once it helped preserve a little knowledge and a kind of safety here in Brankrug, and established the position of librarian. Rowena, secretary persistent of the Curia, a complex entity who has long protected Hush House, is both exhausted and compromised, and so it is time for the librarian to return the favor and establish a successor to the Curia. Help visitors pursue their goals and develop their agendas. When you have found 6 suitable candidates inspired by agendas, you can suggest that they found an organization that's a worthy successor to the Curia of the Isle. So there's sort of this implication that you are bringing in a new age for Hush House, and you get to sort of pick what shape it takes. What other chain offers bug burritos, Prosciutto Fist? I can offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brankrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. So again, I'm earning the money here just because it's really clear that I'm going to need more ingredients. I'm probably going to make a bunch of meringues and whatnot. Local, okay. Local, handmade, artisanal bugs. But I must also go enjoy the rest of your friends. Are you getting ready to stream? For those of you who would like a more engaging broadcaster, There she is. Nah, you know, it's always nice to do the shadows. We have a few other streamers inside of here as well. We have Selphea, we have got Lord Gloom, we had Tiberiosity hanging out a little bit earlier, and Delude Daybreak, so lots of good people to watch. No problem. Have a good one, Prosciutto Fist. I might actually just take a small break for some tea myself, but now that Selphea is back, I feel like I'd feel bad if I don't have a chance to at least show a little bit of gameplay. So let's take our health. In this case, we're going to make dough just so... Actually, no, sorry. I want to see what the meringue winds up making. So, again, add to milk for a legendary dessert, or with spicing... I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be spices. Actually, if you can just give me a quick second here, let me... let me make a note. Because there's another bug that I wanted to write. Potential bug. Not the kind that Pro's eating in her burrito. Okay, so our options. Legendary dessert, make a floating island. So part of this is me just taking notes, right? And we talked about this earlier, how it can be really fun to play a game where you want to take copious notes. And the fact that I have a tablet and a working pencil and stuff like that is great. Okay, so that gives us Grail, Heart, Rose, Sky. Now, interestingly enough, that would be good for enticing Peter Egdistis, but we already have a lot of heart dishes that would work with Isen Fekri. We still don't have any Lantern. And our others right now are Nectar, Forge, Moon, and Scale. So oddly enough, the floating island really doesn't do a whole lot on its own. Pumpkin. No. So spices and savors, there's actually two things that we can do here. We could presumably add the spice scales. No, interesting. Or with spicing, add to... Oh, no, got it. I need to add the apples or pears. Okay. Bake a pear meringue. So that gives us Forge... Grail, Moon, Nectar, Winter. That is a very, very tempting dish to make. Now I'm also going to double check here to see if the spice scales... Yeah, okay. So I think I should probably move these to the kitchen, to be honest, although it's getting a little crowded in here, so maybe we'll leave that aside. I don't think I have any apples. We do have the misshapen fruit, so that doesn't... Apparently that's insufficient. Oh no, it's because I didn't add the That doesn't count. Mushrooms. Nope. This is a first... Oh, interesting. So these count as a first course or a side dish. Huh. So I guess they can't be pickled. Mackerel meringue. Fascinating. So I actually don't have any mushrooms to work with. Although I probably should have paid attention that the pickled mushrooms are in fact a something that I can serve. So hearts, moon, nectar, edge. Trying to think what I would add. Well, surely spices with a ham is... Okay. I'm really just throwing random stuff at this point. Oh, here we go. A ham and potato bake. Forge. Heart. Nectar. Oddly enough, that actually works rather well for the people we want to bring in. So you could bring in Eason, Stanislav John Schaller, and Serena Blackwood off of that. Presumably the milk doesn't do anything. Honey? I don't know. There's a lot of options here. But I think the thing that I want to do is make some dough. Oh, actually, hang on. There's one other one I want to try. Grapes with the meringue? No. Okay, what are we doing here? Flour. Flour, milk, and a bowl. Mixed dough, an ingredient for a higher purpose. Good evening, Cured Charlie. Or I guess just Cured. Can't stick around, but I hope you guys have a good one. Well, thank you for stopping by and saying hello. I hope you have a good evening. Yeah, we still have half of the day to go. I am tempted to get some tea because we're about halfway through and I haven't actually had a break yet. But let's see. Yeah, let's get the results of the dough. So actually, I guess we won't really see the results of the dough until the next day anyway. Put these on the shelf. Ah. There we go. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So, one more. I will use the whisk to catalog a book just because I really do need to get going on some of the different items. But I'm feeling pretty good about being able to host a salon. Right now, I just want to see what my options are in terms of cooking, especially because as time goes by, we should have a better idea about some of the different things that we should be able to accomplish. But also the pentiments and precursors, I think the way I'm going to handle this one is I don't need to put an Arab in place to be able to read the Wind's Ruin. I really just need to either find a memory, or I just wait for a rainy day, which is clearly not going to be happening during winter, but that's not really the point. But I think we should read that book before I kind of commit to anything that'll be giving me extra lessons. Okay, an ingredient for a higher purpose. We won't know what that higher purpose is until I get my health back. But at this point, we sort of have all the pieces on the board. In fact, let's put in an order. So we'll do 2 more flour. Order flour from Cater and Hero. I'll maybe do 2 sugar because I need eggs for those. We'll get some potatoes. Better now. Alright, so we're gonna catalog a book first. Catalog a Dawn Period book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Dawn Period, sometime before the end of the first millennium, commonly reckoned. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Okay, replacement ham. Let's also get 3 milk. Order milk from Cater and Hero. No, I didn't want to get a dripping. That's fine. I can never remember what the difference here. Okay. Oh, we should maybe order some almonds too. Pheasant. Oh man, there's a ton of stuff that we can get. Okay. 3 of each. Order plums from TRN Limited. While we're at it, let's send the order off to Cater and Hero. The postmistress keeps the gate to the wider world. In her left hand is the lightning, which is to say the telegraph, and in her right the thunder, which is to say the only telephone in Brandkrug. Before her lies the cash register, which accepteth the greater currency and returneth its lesser children. Post a completed order form. Provide money equal to the cost. The postmistress will make out a postal order. So that's 45 pence. Ooh. Just use the 10 shilling note. Complete the order. Now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. So this would give us sharps, and it's a 6 moon text, so that should be something we can handle. Postmistress signs and seals the order, places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. Carefully mark the creamy paper. All right, so 3 plums. Oh, and there's beef too. I wish I got this excited about cooking in my own life. All right, so let's go for the simple things. So we'll do almonds and plums. Maybe we'll do 2 pheasant and 2 beef. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon, so I'm going to want to dream on the solace. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Okay, 3 almonds, 3 plums. Carefully mark the creamy paper. Order pheasant from TRN Limited. So yeah, this is obviously, as a broadcaster, I'm kind of conscious of the fact that this is just me doing like a 5-second action in something that resembles a clicker game. But I'm not gonna lie, the excitement of hosting a bunch of the characters in this setting and like thinking about what the best combination will be, like what do I want to serve for this party, like it's very hard to describe because in the end this is a bunch of empty slots and a bunch of cards, but I'm actually feeling quite a degree of sort of excitement and anticipation in terms of getting this party going and like what are the different things I'm going to put together? What will my guests like? What will be the, who should I invite? Who am I going to sort of sit next to each other? They've done a really good job of sort of the, like, I think part of capturing the party, and this is one of the things that I'm always really, really impressed by for these games, is that if you think about the party, right, you very often think about, 63, good lord. Complete the order. You tend to think about the stuff that happens, right? The party's underway, you've got the people there, and if you're telling a story, chances are there's going to be some sort of conflict, right? So will there, do these two people not like each other? Or, maybe someone, this couple, they might be very attached, maybe they're high school sweethearts, but all of a sudden they meet someone who's mad, bad, and dangerous to know, and things get there's now that potential for betrayal and all of that drama. And I mean, let's face it, this is stuff that has worked very well in terms of stories. It's definitely not a knock on it. But there is something to be said. I mean, maybe I don't exactly entertain a whole lot, but there is just something about this idea of all of the preparation and the organization that goes into it, and the anticipation, but also some of the stress. And that isn't so obvious in terms of, tell a story about a party, or make a game about preparing, make a game that is now adding parties to it. But somehow, even though this is an expansion to an existing game that may not have necessarily intended the whole meal part of it, they've done this really good job of sort of getting ready to have all the guests over, and how am I going to pull this off? How am I going to get? How is everything going to be just right? It's really impressive. And definitely here I'm starting to think, what are some of the combinations that I can do? So I'm wondering if I can do some kind of a fruit salad if I put maybe a bowl or the knife. No. I feel like there's something I should be able to do with the grapes. Anyways, we do have some dough, so let's see what we can do with that. There's actually one other thing I want to sort out. So we were able to make dough, but I wonder if there's other things that I can do with the flour. So some of these will just be nonsense, but it doesn't seem to be all that much going on. So as far as I can tell, I haven't been able to make anything with the flour other than the dough. As far as the dough goes, mix with an egg in a bowl to make cake batter, or use to bake various delectable pies. For sweeter pies, you'll want to use spices too. Ooh. Oh, I'm also curious, when it comes to the basket of vegetables, if I consider them, consume, eat it, there'll be nothing left, but you might enjoy the meal. Okay, so mix with an egg in a bowl to make cake batter, or use to bake various delectable pies. I can't make Stargazy pie? I'm so disappointed. Baked bread. Nothing comes to mind. If you have enough heart for apprentice level heart recipe. Interesting. Oh, okay. Apparently I can just straight up bake bread. Okay, so edge, forge, heart, nectar. I refuse to believe you cannot make pumpkin pie. There we go. Okay, bake a pumpkin pie. Yeah. Forge, heart, nectar. So I'm slightly curious about this one. Honey haunted pumpkin pie. Holy hell! The final boss of pies, yeah. Okay. Presumably you can't put drippings. Potato pie would be a little funny. And again, milk doesn't really feel like... Oops. So stuff like the wine and all of that just doesn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense. And the butter on its own, I don't think. We can do what it recommended and add the egg. Whoa. That's interesting. Didn't it say if I add an egg, it'll turn into... Mix with an egg in a bowl to make cake batter. Interesting. I may want to have a chat with the chickens then. I feel like there's more pies I should be able to make, but okay, I think I have a rough idea in terms of what we're going to get up to. So I do want to talk with Yvette Southey, but let's actually take a minute here to see what a realistic kind of gathering would be like. So let's say we host this in the refectory. So this, the room where where once the Curia met, a fitting venue for a salon. Here one might serve lunch in the afternoon or supper in the evening. A good host will provide at least one first course, one main course, one side dish, one pudding. So, one first, one main, one side, one pudding. So we don't quite know what all of these things are. So one thing that I would note, if we take a look at something like the Pilis oat bread, this counts as a first course. Alternatively, the mushrooms count as a first course. The canned ham on its own does not count as a course. Neither do the potatoes. You need to you actually need to cook them. You need to make them. So, as a first course, pickled mushrooms would give us heart, moon, nectar, and edge. Versus forge, heart, nectar, and rose. Versus edge, forge, heart, and nectar. So the bread isn't actually a bad idea here. Okay, so I've got Forge, Heart, and Nectar, which basically says Serena, Stanislav, and Eason are coming. So I'd like to get some sky in if I can. So if I do just a good old-fashioned potatoes, I'll bring in some winter, which presumably will work for Mr. Kill. If I try, if I want to get some sky in, I guess I could do the floating island. Okay, so normal potatoes for Mr. Kill. For a main... And again, I'm making some guesses here, but... So Forge, Heart, and Nectar if I'd like to do ham and potato bake. For mackerel, Forge, Heart, and Moon. Let's say we want Egg Distus in. So now I'm committing to Sky. Now, I could also try egg and butter, which would be Grail, Heart, Scale, and Sky, but maybe we'll leave that aside. So, okay, so I think what I'm going to try here, we'll do bread, ham and potato bake, potatoes for a side, and a floating island for the pudding. Now, this is all assuming that I can actually make, I can make all of this and that this makes what I think it makes. So, let's start with the... I think I'm going to start with the floating island, actually. So we add the milk, we add the meringue, make a floating island. Let's just see if there's other possibilities here. So if I add the spices, nothing on its own. If I add the bowl, nothing on its own. If I add the A knife, we don't get anything out of that, so fair enough. Make a floating island, a dish with grail, heart, rose, and sky. Okay, let's also catalog some books. So we only have 2 more to go. So catalog a Solar Period book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s to 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. While I do that, I think I will also catalog the last one with the Whist. And then we will open another container with my Tryst. Something small and rare. Crack open the container. Delight in your discovery. So we don't necessarily know what the season's bringing yet. I'm actually going to commit my Whist here, just because I need the money. Can offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters, or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. So, I may want to restore one of the Whist in order to make another... Ooh, that's a tall order, actually. I don't think I'm going to be able to do another Solomon's Preparation. Well, there's a couple things that I could do for it, but nothing I want to commit to. Yeah, that is a shame to let another snowy day go by like that, but... I guess one other consideration would be, can I get something out of the... I guess it wouldn't be the piano. We'd need to find something that would take... I guess we could maybe try the Sunset Harp, but if we did Snow... I guess it would have to be Bells and Braziers, which is already a bit of a worry. So then I could add the Solace, but that really just gives me 5 to work with. That's not all that special. The History of Inks, a legendary grimoire of exotic ink-making lore. The cover and some of the pages, unfortunately, are stained and crusted with something more like mucus than ink. So I'll put this in the too difficult pile. And the Damascene Traditions of the House of Leith. That would be good for Sacralamea. Of course, we'd probably get more than one anyway. This was my 8 stack, but I have a feeling... Yeah, so you know what? I'm going to put this one in the overflow. So I'm trying to think... Do I want... I guess it makes sense to bring back the Fete. Rest a quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. Yeah, so this still makes sense because I still need to open up the different... the different packages. I guess this will mean I'm late on the health, though. All right, well, I'll just leave that for another day then. Another wolf snow ampule. Oh man, they really want me to make that that Solomon's Preparation. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Alright, here is our floating island. Vanilla, custard, meringue, landscaped and carameled, a Claridge's specialty. So this counts as pudding. And of course, this is the quote that I think everybody knew this quote was coming. If you don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? Waters. Now I am curious, if I were to put this in, presumably I can't put this with the mirrors. Okay, so Mr. Kill, let me just double check the guest list again. So we've got one for Eason, actually technically two. One sky for Agdistis. And then nobody here uses Rose or Grail yet. I think I might spend the money just to bring the health back, just because otherwise it's mostly just making money today, which, again, is not a problem. But I feel like we could maybe do a little bit more with the day. One of the things I think is kind of interesting about the way I play this too, there's very little cost to me just experimenting with some of the different recipes. Because in the end, it's just another thing that I keep around the house that I use later, right? It's not like they expire. But I have been quite reluctant to do that kind of experimentation. I think it's mostly just because of a time thing, right? Because I have so few elements of the soul. But yeah, I did want to bring back a health here just so I can make the bread. Actually, I guess we kind of know what the bread will be. I think I'll make the potatoes. I deserved a little quiet time. Okay, this one we are putting into opening containers. Crack open the container. Delight in your discovery. And then for the rest of the day, the whist will be used to earn a little bit of money. The heart will be used to make another dish. And then we can think about how the rest of the salon goes. Now remember, it's one thing to put together it's one thing to kind of put together all of the different dishes, but we also need to invite everyone, which is going to be its own challenge. But I figure I can work on that. I figure the inviting the guests part is the more challenging part, just in terms of what that's going to be expected of me in terms of the making different inks and such. So I figure I can save that for the very end. All right, better now. So, roast potatoes, a dish with edge, forge, heart, or winter. If I add bowl, doesn't do anything. There was a slice them with a knife and add dripping to make game chips. So that gets rid of the winter. Or roast them with or without dripping. So if we lose the knife and we add the dripping magnificently, so it gives us a little extra heart, but what we were looking for is the winter here. And apparently adding spice doesn't do anything. I'm okay with some good old-fashioned roast potato. What, can we add booze? No. Honey? Honey makes everything better. Roast potatoes. Ooh, a yellowing newspaper. It is dated the year that Hush House was abandoned. So that is a very useful source of occult scraps on top of being able to fill my case with further visitors. All right, now the timing didn't work out so well because I think what's going to happen here is I'm not going to have enough time to restore the Whist and turn that into either a like opening up a package or performing some kind of action. So a bit of a shame, but I'm not gonna get too torn up about it. We made our money. We're also going to be getting a big shipment in, so the pantry cannot contain what we're about to get. So we'll leave that be. Alright, this counts as a side dish, generally eaten as a light snack or alongside a main course. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately the kitchen garden at Hush House has never been short of rosemary. Alright, I think we're just going to let the rest of the day go through. I'm going to take a small break. We're almost done for tonight, but I am still going to take a small break just so I can get a refill on my tea. But I think it's fair to say over the course of the next day or two, we should be ready to... yeah, we're getting close. I don't think we're going to be able to get it all done in one day. Unless I dip into my water. Or I could maybe use the Eigengrau, actually. Yeah, okay, no. I think by the end of today we will actually be able to cook everything that I need. So first thing in the morning, we'll take the potatoes and ham to make the main course. And then we will bake the starter, the bread. I also notice, so restorative, intoxicating, cooking ingredient to serve. And then if I take a cup, restorative, intoxicating, cooking ingredient. I'm noticing that there's no like tea as in a like that is not a dish itself, which I think is kind of interesting. Okay, let's preserve the solace. I should also prepare for making some more parabate. It's my most accessible ink right now. Daybreak. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. Okay, I'm going to take a very short break, just enough time to kind of put on the kettle, refill my tea. I wish I had a snack, actually. I will confess, I've been really wanting to. I don't know. There's just something about the preparing for the party that makes me feel a little. Actually, I got some almonds. All right, I'm gonna get myself a little snack too. I'll try not to make it too long, but I'm fighting the laws of physics here in terms of getting the water to a boil. So if you've been here with us since the start, now would be a good time to maybe catch a, get a quick drink, have a stretch, otherwise take care of yourself. Like I said, I don't want it to take too long, but I am going to still need to wait for the kettle to boil and such. So I will see you all in a little bit. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I don't have audio. What's going on here? There we go. But yeah, I needed to get my tea. My tea is currently steeping, but that doesn't mean I need to hold back from you any longer. So, we will... I'm going to make sure that the ham and potatoes are in fact a main course. Now, it's always nice to just double check my options here. So if I try to add spices, that doesn't do anything. If I try to add the knife, that doesn't do anything. If I try to add the bowls, that doesn't do anything. Trying to think if there's anything else I could put in this slot. I don't think so, but you never know. The Cucurbit Barrette is the final and most powerful kitchen ingredient. Nothing in the forge. Can't use the saw. Fair enough. I think I can learn to live with that. Okay, but yes, let's make a ham and potato bake, a dish with forge, heart, and nectar. So let's just double check what the... Well, hang on. Let's not count that as done yet until we see that that's a main course. Okay, from that, let's go back to making some money. Help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. The winter is actually coming from the just the roast potatoes. So, a lot of potatoes in this one. Something renounced. Who threw this overboard? Oh, that's good. So we'll take Ava's desk. We'll read The Wind's Ruin. So we don't need to worry about the bloodlines because we don't have Arab and we don't have Core. So we can add the rain here, and then we can add pentiments and precursors. So I can match this mystery, enough Grail to match Mystery Grail. So again, just another skill that we can add to our list. Also want to load up on some packages, so I think we're good for mystery boxes. Time to cook. How you doing, Hit People Guy? I want to be a little more organized here, so we'll arrange the paint. Eigengrau can go in Allopolis Distillery. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Alright, and this is a main course, so a ham and potato bake, filling and tasty. Alright, so... this should satisfy Serena with Forge, Eason with 2 Heart, and Stanislav with 1 Nectar. Actually, I'm just gonna redo this list here. First main side dish pudding. Alright, we're gonna get the health back right away, so... health. Eigengrau. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. Okay, here was trying to figure out if you wanted to play something tonight, but I think it's just watching instead. Watching's just fine, especially a relaxing game like Book of Hours. What were you thinking of playing? Okay, so the floating island is good for Sky, which is good for Ecdistis. The heart is good for Isen Fekri. Grail and Rose aren't good for anyone. Potatoes, presumably winter's good for Mr. Kill. Stanislav John Schaller wants Nectar, which this doesn't have, but Serena would like Forge. Ethan likes Heart. Ham and Potato Bake. Ethan's going to be very happy. Mr. Kill and Stanislav for Nectar. So then we make the bread starter, which should have Edge, Forge, Heart, and Nectar. Ambergris Chunk, never, never, never call it whale vomit. Contraband Jetsam flung overboard in furtive haste. Who threw this overboard? Gotta go for an appointment, but I suspect you'll be done before you're back. Thanks for the great stream. Well, thank you very much, Sylphea. I have no idea whether or not people get anything out of this. I'm very excited by what's coming up on this, but the idea of getting excited about hosting a party for fictional people is a little funny. I hope this gave you at least a little bit of an idea of what's going on, but I hope your appointment goes well. For those of you that haven't checked the streamer out yet, please do check out Sylphea, wonderful Australian broadcaster. And for those of you who think that I finished too early, Sylphea is Australian, so that is a perfect time for all of you. But thank you very much for coming by, Sylphea. I do hope I get a chance to see you in your place soon, but I appreciate the fact that you still stop by, even though I'm more of a taker rather than a giver, I guess. And Hit People Guy says, that's the problem, nothing's been sounding fun. You tried a few games that you normally enjoy, Satisfactory, Puzzle Quest, Deep Rock, Galactic Survivor, but none of them hit the right itch. I know it's not a transaction, but I do genuinely enjoy your streams, so it is more a wish that I spend more time in leisure than work, so. But have a lovely evening. Or I guess afternoon for you. Still wish I had something for my occult scrap here. I'd just like to get Yvette in the notebook. So I'm just waiting to see if there's another package that comes out of the Something Renounced. If there is, that'll go in the inventory, and if not, then I'll put it elsewhere. I also don't need to be carrying my silver-bound journal everywhere. I have a tendency to do that. Yeah, it's got to be upright. Better now. So many packages. Oh yeah, I didn't finish cleaning up this area too. And we still have the bag of tricks. There we go, box of rarities. The Wind's Ruin, the second volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Oh, there we go. So I have read this before. Abbot Thomas speaks of his time as a... Wait a minute. No, this is not in the Socratic mode. Abbot Thomas speaks of his time as a raider when his name was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence. But there are hints that he also misses those years and the companionship of his sword brother, ship brother, Trygev. So that gives me a beguiling melody. I'll make a note in the... I don't want to spread the misery. Okay, Applebright Euphonies. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. That is a nice touch. If you didn't notice, so when we put labels on, right, we normally get these. Now this is technically a bookshelf. Books live happily upright here, but other things are permitted to join them. But obviously the tag, yeah, toe tag for... Out of curiosity, Hit People Guy, you were talking about some of the games that you normally play. Are you a fan of the Zachtronic stuff at all, or have you ever played any of them? Okay, health. Sorry, I think it was a dough and a... I think it was just dough and a bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Oh, don't even need a bowl, actually. A dish with edge, forge, heart, and nectar. Let's not even try to get clever. Let's just bake it. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. Breath is the temptation of the soul, pleasures and insights that the Church would call the secrets, the sisterhood, the mysteries, and the bureau unsanctioned. Grail and Two Sky also goes to Boscan Illumination Wisdom. Oh, interesting. I feel like Opus Magnum is the one that really sells people. I have really enjoyed TIS 100, but that's maybe not a good starter. And I actually think Exapunks is quite good. Now those would be a little bit more puzzly, but I think those, I don't know, if you're looking for something, I think some of those might even be available on some of the various subscription platforms. But if you're looking to change things up, if you get a chance to try a Zachtronics game, that might scratch a certain itch. Open a package, unwrap, unbox, unleash. Something delightful has arrived. Lots of things. All right, TRN. Order form TRN selects its clients carefully, one might say eccentrically. They rarely advertise, but in their long history, they have never lacked for custom. So, 3 plums. Add bread and use a knife for plum croutons, or an egg and use the mixing bowls for a prune whip. Or actually, they're perfectly acceptable as a first course, although only gets me heart there. I think I'm gonna... Holy hell! They're huge! Pheasant, roast it or add butter if you intend to jug it. Fascinating. Beef, roast it or perhaps marinate it first if you have something intoxicating for the marinade. And almonds, add sugar and spice to make jumble. Also just works as a side dish. Where on earth am I going to fit all of these? Our bread, crusty bread. Use bread with a knife and mushrooms, ham, pilchards, or other savory things, or add apples and spice for a classic English pudding. Interesting. I also really like this description. So, the grains suffer so that they may enter into us and be one with us. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is going to be the first course for our first salon, but I do kind of want to see what this does in the long run. Bit of a shame to lose the beguiling melody. I don't think we're going to be able to keep it overnight, though, so... So we are getting close to the end of winter. I'm going to need to figure out if I... Oh, and here's my Cater and Hero delivery. I have no idea how I'm going to fit all this in. Actually, I should be cheeky and put the beef in there. Something for future. But yeah, so I think the account of Kanishk the Spider's Door, I have a reasonable chance of being able to read. Bellus Murorum, Journal of Walter de Wolf, Sun's Lament are probably things I have to leave. Actually, you know what? I think Catwink might have an edge. So if I'm willing to use Catwink, I might be able to read that. So the hope here would be to read as many of the books as I can before we do the salon. So, unwrap, unbox, unleash. Cater and Hero has offices almost everywhere, not in this misty limb of the kingdom, but they will at least deliver here. Use ink to order items of interest. A few lines on an order form won't consume the ink. When your delivery arrives, it will contain a new order form. Okay, so more sugar, cream it with butter in a mixing bowl, add almonds and spices for jumble, or with an egg, a bowl, and care, you can make meringue. Don't know if I have enough room. Nope, we got it. More potatoes. No room for potatoes. Milk. Ham. Oh, man. Oh, no, there we go. Not quite there. I didn't exactly want the dripping, but... Ah! So we shouldn't need to worry about any orders for a little while. I think we're in good shape. maybe move the laundry. Still a little weird to have the food over here, but... Alright, I think we're set. So we're making a bit of money for the end of the day, but that's it. So the next phase of the plan is going to be to see how I can invite some of the various people. Now, I'd sort of like to try and get through that all in one day. And that's going to involve some planning on my part, right? Because I can invite Mr. Kill quite easily. Getting everybody else to arrive at the same time is a little bit more of a challenge. So what I'm eventually going to want to make sure I have is basically... So I want to do like a dress rehearsal for each invitation. And once I feel confident that I'm able to do that, I'm going to want to make sure that I have enough ink to be able to actually be able to pull off the mass invites. Now, they may not all show up at the same time that I ask them. That's obviously going to be its own complication. But I figure it'll be the first salon. Not everything's going to go according to plan, but we can at least try and create conditions under which under which I'm able to I'll have like the best collection I can. I don't know if that quite makes sense, but like basically if I lose one or two to just sort of attrition or them not being there or not having a bed to let people rest in, that's a little bit different from, I didn't even have a plan for 4 people to show up at the same time is sort of the thing that I'm thinking of. So let's think about invites. So Serena needs 3 forge. I currently don't have any forge elements of the soul. Oh, well, that's easy. So my best bet here would be bells and oh, actually, so we could do that at Ambrose's desk, but I would need a forge memory. So let's say foresight. I'd love to bring D.I. Moore in, but I believe he would want lantern food. Okay, so Eason's... Actually, you know what? Can make this a little bit easier. So Eason, piece of cake. In fact, I could probably use like Trist or something like that here. So if I wanted to bring Schaller in, I would add herbs and infusion. Oh, now it gets interesting. Well, actually, that's not as hard as it seems, because then we just go up to Natan's desk. In fact, that may not be one that I have to use heart with. Sort of. So unless I can come up with Ugal, I'd probably need to use a memory. So Peter Agdistis, I think, is a little bit like Serena in the sense that I guess I could add the Whist. Stargull shouldn't be that hard for me to make, but again, it's a question in terms of what I can produce on any given day. So, you know, Applebright Euphonies is as good as anything that I've got, really. Actually, so if I did Drums and Dances with a heart, that would get me Eason. No, not Eason, sorry. Stanislav. So that one, I guess, would be whatever. And okay, yeah. So let's game this out. So I would need Element of the Soul for Foresight. And then we could invite Serena. Eason is actually easier than I thought. In reality, like Quenchings and Quellings kind of already covers this, but we're already using a heart sort of ink anyway, so we'll just say Element of the Soul. Stanislav would have to be health. And then Agdistis. Technically, if I sleep on the Solace, I keep that, so... Okay, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5 elements of the soul. So that's, I mean, it's a day's work, but theoretically we could get everyone to join in. Theoretically, we could get everybody to come in on the same... Well, okay, there's no guarantee that they would come in on the same day, but theoretically, we could get everybody in at the same time. So, I do still want to deal with these packages. However, I want to get into a point where I can... I don't think I have anything for inks. I do want to get to a point where I can invite everyone. So I'm actually going to make a bunch of ink today. And that's going to be its own challenge. Ooh, yeah, hang on. I actually need to think about how I make this ink in the first place. Yeah. I don't even remember which one I used before to make the ink that I had. And this, of course, is assuming that I consume the ink for the invitation. But like I said, if we're going to do this all in one go, I kind of want to be prepared. So... I'm sure there's a more systematic way for me to think through this, but Okay, I'm slightly puzzled now, so let's... Oh wait, I think it might have been weaving and not working. I think it probably threw me off because I always associate that with... Yep, parabate from... Okay, that complicates things a little bit, because it involves me generating memories. I guess the good news is I can make Catwink. Okay. So I'm going to go in two sort of seemingly contradictory directions here. So one, I do want to read the Sun's Lament because I can actually do this now. So we add the Cucurbit Barrette. No, we don't. We add the Catwink. Wait a minute. I don't have a contradiction. What was I thinking? Okay, well, that is, I guess, its own work, because we can still do Kanishk the Spider's Door, and that, I think Sharps actually gets me a little bit more edge anyway. So that's 3 of 6 that we need. We can get up to 5 and then 6. Sadly, no moon from the occult scrap. Okay, this is a pretty straightforward one. We just use the Fet to get moon, but let's see what the weather brings anyway. Hello, ever-waiting sleeper. Doing all right. Yourself? I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. Okay. Gales change things. So first of all, I'm able to brew that ink. So let's get that out of the way. I'll do that at Natan's desk. So if I just straight up add the Gale, I can really add whatever I want here. So craft the parabate. So here I'll use the Whist to read a book with confounding parables. 108 by Ava DeWolf. And with that we will read the account of Kanishk the Spider's Door. Now the health doesn't really have that much to do today. I can try... Well, actually, I could get... I could pluck flowers, so yeah, gather in winter. Few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue Crown is one of those few. So obviously I was excited to get the salon going, but I do have an opportunity here. So one, I definitely wanted to take the opportunity to brew the ink. And that's just because I don't know if I have to use the full pot to bring in all of the... or to bring in a guest. So in theory, I may need 4 of these. I had the opportunity to read a Kanishk the Spider's Door, so I wanted to do that if I could. Obviously, I'd like to read the Sun's Lament as well, but Kanishk the Spider's Door at least gets me the sharps. And then... once we're ready, so again, the main idea here would be, if I can, or if I need to, we send out all the invitations at once in hopes that everybody arrives at the same time, and I don't need to worry about managing the guests before we begin. But I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other things that we need to, we need to think of. I've got the dishes, which is what matters. It's just a question of getting the guests. And again, we're inviting for bringing in Mr. Kill. And then, again, I also have the option of inviting a further guest, but I think we'll bring in Mr. Kill for this time around. We did make the wintry potatoes for him. And we'll see what happens. 108. Ava DeWolf discourses on the fifth history, and particularly on those who are said to have passed over from it, the Great Hooded Princes, the Knocklong who ascended under the Mother of Ants, but now, so Ava claims, honor the Horned Axe. The Great Hooded Princes call their library the Tomb of Lies, and this has given rise to a foolish tradition that the princes are habitual liars. Of course, in fact, truth flourishes when lies are slain. On the other hand, the princes do not say knowledge is power, but rather power is knowledge. Ava has, to her regret, never visited the library. She notes that it is said to be west of the Lion and north of Victory, and suggests that although the princes are generally associated with India, their library might be further east. So this gives me the last item that I need to read the account of Kanishk the Spider's Door. So we'll employ our Tryst. We will take Sea Stories. We will take the Confounding Parable. The final element we need is the Lunar Globe. It's the Earth, but silvered like the Moon, unlabeled and pocked with craters. I can master this mystery. Enough moon to match Mystery Moon. Some authorities claim it's difficult to lose a pot of Parabet ink, but they haven't lived at Hush House. So 2 of the 4 that we'll employ. Trying to think if I want to use... Nah, I think we'll have a more relaxed day. I also think this might be the last day for the session tonight because I do have a couple things that I need to do before I go to sleep. And if I go too much later, I am going to wind up not getting enough rest. Few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue Crown is one of those few. I also have the option of bringing Reverend Timothy in to open up the Shrouded Stair, but I've just had other things to do. We still have so many packages to open up. Yeah, I feel like some of this stuff was written definitely after... And I have to imagine that some of the design of Hush House is definitely to create a certain sense of panic when you're looking for things. It's actually one reason why I never take my journal away from me. Although it is also fair to say in real life, like, I have quite a few books that I just carry around with me, and that is just always a state of affair. Like, that's never going to change. You know, the... actually, right now, I've got 2 sort of Romanish sort of books because I am a man and I have to think about the Roman Empire every couple of days, otherwise they revoke my man card. But I've got Mary Beard's, I think it's Laughter in Ancient Rome, and then I've also got Ovid's Fasti, which I feel like is, I'm pretty sure, is an inspiration for this. I would be surprised if it wasn't. But then again, I don't know all of Weather Factory's influences. They do have a page of them, but I don't know if they've updated it for Hush House. Okay. Let's see if we can make a little bit more. We are going to get the stipend from St. Ronwin before too long, but The account of Kanishk at the Spider's Door. Loch Cowley, Kanishk's victim and lover, wrote this account, perhaps posthumously. Kanishk sought to become a name. In pursuit of that end, he made Loch Cowley the vessel of his appetites, promising Loch that they would ascend together. At the Spider's Door, he betrayed his lover. The Chiliarch listened to it happen and then forced Kanishk into his service. The Chiliarch cannot be denied. Loch Cowley remained to write this work and to describe the outer magics of struggle and contest. So Stolen Secret's good. And Sharps. I've gained more understanding of Sharps. Use this card with Consider. So let's just see. I believe the secret I have is the... Yeah. So maybe what we'll do here, we'll move Apollo and Marsyas down. So we'll move the Stolen Secrets here. So they're sort of roughly in the same place. Good lord. Acquire Sharps. I use this lesson to acquire a new skill. So the Stolen Secret, good for Moon. It does also offer a little knock, so I could get 3 knock together if I needed something. So we could probably do something like take the Preliminal Meter to the Shrine of St. Januarius. The question is, what would I be trying to do with it? Okay, Sharps, Knives, Dangers, and Things Out of Place. So, what's nice about this one is that now I can take the Sun's Lament. So we can take Sharps with that. And in this case, I still have to get the Fear, but I can basically just add, you know, a Trist... Trist the Fear and then call it a day. So that brings me up to A Ragged Crossroads, and we have another book on my list taken care of. I don't think we can do the same trick for Dibellus Murorum. At that point, what we'd probably need to do would be DBM, the Catwink, Sharps. Well, let's just do the numbers. So 1, 3... Yeah, so 3 memories for... What on earth did I think? No, yeah, the Catwink's the same as adding the Cucurbit Barrette. I don't know why I thought the Catwink would improve anything. But yeah, at the very least we can get the Sun's Lament. And then, I mean, if we get Hail, we do have the option of reading Dibellus Murorum, but until that happens, I probably shouldn't bank on getting it. The only reason why I wanted to sort of exhaust my options as far as lessons were concerned, we are going to get lessons from the Salon. So if I'm not prepared, if I wind up sort of if I wind up sort of thoughtlessly hosting it, and then it's like, oh, I've got all these spare lessons to do things with, I'm gonna sort of scramble and potentially not make the most. Like, so again, not a lot of these have been leveled up, specifically because I want to work out a path through the Tree of Wisdoms. And I have some things that I can do. So again, I know I'm going to be moving up Oromachistry. I know I'm going to be moving up Hushery. But there is a way that I can navigate this that also results in me getting quite a bit of... quite a few elements of the soul, specifically ones that would allow me to bring them up to the triple plus. So, you know, taking a time to consider that, or at least getting myself as close as I can to an outcome like that, to me at least, I think is worthwhile. Just because it means when it comes time to brew some of the rarer inks or to try and do a few of the other more difficult tasks, I don't need to, I don't need to try and like move heaven and earth to make certain things happen. Obviously, the cost to that right now are a few different rooms that I'm not having as good of a time trying to move through. Although, again, we can at least get through the Shrouded Stair with Reverend Timothy. I don't think there's a book in here, but yeah, needless to say, I have options, but right now I'm mostly interested in seeing what happens when we have the guests. Now that I sort of know how cooking works, I'd be interested in seeing how, how we can use that to give our guests a good time and see. Let's let the time pass. Could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. We'll generate the fear. Ooh, hail. All right. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. So if that's the case, I know I said this was going to be it, but... So if we take Tibellus Murorum, we add the hail. We add sharp... Oop, that's right. I need to do it at Ava's desk. It's a little unlucky for me in the sense that... Stop it. Edge of Conquest. I can master this mystery, enough edge to match mystery edge. So the drawback here, of course, is that I need to find something else I can use at Ava's desk. I guess that would be the whist in this case. So maybe leave this one aside. For my health... I would kind of like to try and make another January Sanguinary is too good to turn into ink. So I went to a dispensary with weaving and not working and health. I'm too short. Now technically one of the things could be cake bowls. Or mixing bowls, kitchen bowls. I still need one more. Yeah, the hard stuff I'd give up is just a little too good. So the obvious answer here is to say you can always get the solace back. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. You know what? Let's just play through today. I know I'm half an hour late, but all right. Current affairs. What's happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? We'll either draw a new incident, find a suitable visitor for the current incident, or retire the current incident if there are no visitors left for it. Yearly stipend. The yearly stipend from St. Ronwin's has arrived, along with the usual rather sniffy reminder that I should spend it wisely. I shouldn't be hanging on as tightly as I am to the occult scrap, but I am. But I think basically the logic right now is that, so I was willing to give up that solace because I'm looking to fill the shelf with Peribian. So we've got that. We have 3 of the 4 that I need, and I'm willing to give up the one in this room. In fact, we could probably send out the invites tomorrow, I think. Now, because scale is going to be temporarily available to us, I might want to see what my options are there. They're not great, to be honest. So I can bring 1 from myself, 2 from the follower, so that brings us up to 3. Then the earth sign brings us up to 5. The tool brings us up to 6. Okay, spoke too soon, actually. Okay, Strathcoin Whiskey brings us up to 8. I'm really willing to give up a whole pheasant. Feels a little extreme. We could give up the ham, though. Okay, so in theory, if I wanted to use the miner to unlock different parts of the house, we could get the Root Throng Descent, we could get the blockaded stairs. Okay, so we'll have 2... we'll invite the miner over twice. Sparrow acknowledges... Sorry. Stolen Histories. The agitator and pamphleteer Alexander Sparrow inveighs against the monstrous serpents, thieves of history. Sparrow acknowledges 5 histories, insists the 3rd history may be overrun by coils, warns the 5th history is already lost. Sparrow, with his usual paranoia, appears to be conflating the horror of the Worm Wars and the Great Writhing with the activities of the Great Hooded Princes. Still, he draws thought-provoking comparisons between the princes, normally conceived as exotic knocklong, and the widely feared worms. So yeah, I think it's fair to say we're good to go with Dr. Aaron Peel. So he knows VAC, but we're gonna get his card first. Okay, the affair of the Friar's Tapestry. A tapestry has been stolen from the Ostorium that depicts details of a very old rite indeed, one that may only be performed at Gladwin Lake when the moon is ripe. Exactly what it might renew is unclear, but it almost inevitably someone will try it anyway. So first thing I'm going to do with Dr. Aaron Peel, exile Riddlemonger's Thunderskin devotee, I'd rather say confidant. Impeccably dressed, but always in dark clothing so the stains don't show. Dark the dressings, too, at the ankles and his wrists. I won't take a seat. It's kind of you to offer. It would be unkind of me to accept. So we should have a couple of things written by Aaron Peel here. Ah! I think he's not going to be happy with this one. The day, the night, and here we are again in the day. Marvelous. If there's an incident card active, you can discuss it or just leave the slot empty and offer a consultation. So if we give him, there's the radical measure. The original radical measures was a manifesto for experimental poetry with occult properties, written in the 19th century by Dr. Aaron Peel. The original is notoriously incoherent. Much later, Christopher Lopoli took on the task of editing and glossing it. He has taken some liberties, but the updated version is generally well regarded. The glossed version? I've been trying to get my hands on this edition for quite some time. Once I have it, I can decide if I need to get my hands on young Lopoli. I'll give you a silver spintria for it. Peel will take the book, but won't leave until his other business is concluded. So I'm not ready to give up the radical measure here. We do, however, have the book that he wrote. Not to everyone's taste, I know. A prophet is without honor in his own country, as the saying has it, and I'm pretty sure much from everywhere these days. So I'm pretty much from everywhere these days, so I suppose no one will ever really take me seriously again. Mind if I take a look? I can point out a couple of the better bits, and I'll keep my gloves on. Peel will examine the book and return it to you. He won't leave until his other business is concluded. So yeah, let's see what he has to say about the radical measure. While we do that, I can also take a look for... I know at the very least we have the collected Hush House lectures. White Book of Brittany, no. History to Eternity, no. Agent of the Duties. Carmine Petal. Sorry, I'm just taking a second here to see if... Oh yes, I actually wanted to... I couldn't remember which one it was, but the Flayed Tantra. So, this is an interesting one, right? This Tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, with many of the qualities of the mythological Naga. The Flayed Tantra played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering, so it's not clear if this is Aaron Peel or not. And I've never handed it to him. Okay, so I seem to have... seem to be mistaken on a couple of the books that I have, but we have enough to work with. Here and here. And the editor tried to take that bit out, so I arranged a motivational sort of dream. Worth it. Ooh, Horizon Sight. And Preliminal Meter, which we already have, so that's going to be a small dilemma for me, but not impossible. So, I am curious. Aha! Oh, undiplomatic librarian. Every one of us still living, we all shed histories as a snake casts its skin, and I cast this history off long ago. I have no wish at all to revisit it. I wonder if there's ever a case where I would have to give him something hard. I guess not, because it's not listed on his character, but that would be kind of funny. All right, let's talk to him about the affair of the Friar's Tapestry. Something regrettable is due to occur at Gladwin Lake, regrettably soon. Try a book with as much mystery moon as their moon interest. If I can't prevent what's coming, I'll have to watch. I might even learn. But I've come here to learn first. If I learn enough, I won't need to watch. If I don't watch, I might not worry. Undiplomatic. I like that. Yeah, so we'll give him what does not bark. Robigo, the generous with hosts, the little traveling. He's a name of the crowned growth. He's an especial friend of the Ostorium, and if anyone bears the blame for the Ortuccio incident, it's him. None of these phrases give me any particular pleasure to say. Be of good cheer, librarian. Once I go out into the world, you may never have to hear any of them ever again. So I'm going to hang on to the preliminal meter. We don't have a Numa to fear right now, so I'm going to... We're going to wait for the... we're going to wait for Dibellus Murorum to finish, and then we're going to go straight into the Sun's Lament, and then that has something of a credible claim to be all of the... Well, not exactly, but it's definitely a credible claim to be most of what I'm going to be able to gather. So I think the order for the next few streams... Well, tell you what, let's finish what's on my plate first, and then we can talk about future plans. Dibellus Murorum, an 18th century epic poem by the pseudonymous Solipstos. The poem elliptically describes a war between beasts, weather phenomenon, and arcane concepts. It's quite specific about their tactics. The two one joined, and the horn distinguished, consequently blood. So, Disciplines of the Scar. Contradiction, very welcome addition to the library. So in addition to the fact that I now have Sharps and Discipline of the Scar, I now have something that gets me 2 edge as opposed to 1. So that's going to make my life even easier in terms of... In fact, I might use the contradiction now, because it's pretty clear I'm not going to get a heart. Yeah. So here's what we're going to do. Sun's Lament. Sorry, before I do that. Disciplines of the Scar. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. Whist. Sun's Lament. Sharps. So we have 2 of 4. Now I could add the Kirkabit Barrette, but in this case we might as well add the Contradiction. Decree, thank you very much for your subscription. I was going to finish not late, but now I get to stream a little bit longer for you. I can master this mystery. Enough edge to match. Mystery edge. This might be... I know the VODs haven't gone online on YouTube yet. They are in the process, but I'm glad I caught you. I've been having net issues all day. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know if you streamed today or not, but I hope they didn't get in the way. If they did, I hope you've at least had a chance to just do something else and keep keep a level head. But we got all the cooking done. Also, I don't think I... Did I talk? Well, Ava and Abraham, 1724, a magnificent depiction in oils of an elegantly dressed 18th century couple. The face of the gentleman, however, was long ago obliterated by a splash of some dark, corrosive substance. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have Hendrik's Blade, a long hunting knife or a short close-quarters sword. A plaque reads, Hendrik de Wolf, 1525. So if we want... Actually, I don't think this counts as kitchenware. Let's see. Nope, it just needs to be a knife. So, use bread with a knife and mushrooms, ham, pilchards, or other savory things, or add apples and spice for classic English pudding. Unfortunately, we don't have an element of the soul. But we, in the next stream... oh, sorry to hear that. But we did some cooking. So we've got crusty bread, 2 heart, nectar, edge, and forge, and it counts as a side dish. We have a ham and potato bake, filling and tasting, forge, 2 heart, and nectar. This is a main course. We've got roast potatoes. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately, the kitchen garden at Hush House has never been short of rosemary. Edge, forge, 2 heart, and winter. And this is the side dish, generally eaten as a light snack or alongside the main course. And finally, floating island, vanilla, custard, and meringue, landscaped and carameled, a Claridge's specialty. 2 grail, 2 heart, 1 rose, 1 sky. And the intention is to invite Serena, Eason, Stanislav, Agdistis, and Mr. Kill for the first salon at Hush House. Doesn't it, though? I will say, so again, just a reminder, this is an early beta of House of Light, but I was saying a little bit earlier, one of the things that I actually really like about this, and I wasn't expecting, and again, this is completely characteristic for Weather Factory games, in my view. They have this wonderful quality where, like, to me, you think, okay, they're gonna add parties, basically. You get to bring everybody together, you have the discussions and so on and so forth, and you think, okay, this is a narrative game, so this is going to be a game where you, where the party happens, and, the thing that you always imagine, right, is there's 2 things I can think of, actually. I'm also thinking of, like, movies that I've watched. Either there is the drama inherent at the party itself, right? Are people fighting? Is there a chance for romance? Is there, all sorts of the different things. Human interaction is obviously a source of tons of different things that can happen. That is the party itself. And sometimes there can also be the build-up towards a party, right? But that's usually, I've seen, it's depicted as somebody who is getting ready to go. And it's often very much tied to those things that are at play, right? Is that girl I like, is she going to be there? What if she brings a date? That would crush me, that sort of stuff. Or whatever. I mean, it depends on the story that you're telling, but that's not an uncommon one. And let's face it, that's not an uncommon one because that's something that people have experienced. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Obviously, I am the one, bringing the date and breaking everybody else's hearts. But, I understand other people may have experienced this. But the thing that actually I found is really exciting about this is there's all the anticipation of hosting people, right? So, like, you can see that my pantry is full of stuff. I've got beef, I've got pheasant, dripping, I've got, I kept this mackerel, I've got tons of flour, tons of sugar, we've actually got overflow, so I've got 3 bowls of plums, milk, more potatoes, and I had this whole process of trying to figure out what dishes my guests would like, and I'd be sort of thinking, like, who do I invite, and I'm going to think, what am I capable of making, what ones am I going to find a little bit easier to invite. I have a couple of other things in the back of my head in terms of what I want to do, but, like, who would have thought that you can make a game out of the process or the preparation of bringing people over to the party, right? It's not like, are there going to be 2 guests that, like, hate each other? Is Hokabald going to be a pain in the ass? And, like, is Ibn al-Adim going to, like, smash, the Rococo clock over his head or something like that? All of the fun for me is, like, planning and getting everybody ready to talk. So I don't know. I wouldn't have told you that was something that I was looking forward to in House of Light, but that's actually been a source of significant amusement on my part. So, all right, the Affair of the Friars Tapestry. So MCO Lee researched countermeasures at Hush House, hoping to limit any damage caused by the rite. Dr. Southey's patient believed he would be reborn at Gladwin Lake beneath the moon, and she decided after visiting Hush House that it would be futile to try and prevent him from going. Always the tide. Peel always looks so happy in his icon. Dr. Peel went off to watch the rite at Gladwin Lake, intoning sinister names, Robigo the Generous with Hosts, the Crowned Growth, or Tuccio. So, but yeah, so I am looking forward to hosting the first Salon, but we have a few other things we need to do, so I'm not quite there yet. So I think what I was going to do is I was going to make sure that I had 4 Peribiot, which I technically do now, and I may want to... another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms, Disciplines of the Scar. So we'll get Ragged Crossroads from this book. We have a preliminal meter, which I'm not quite going to study yet. Again, it wouldn't hurt to take it to level 2, like, you know, I kind of need to get a grip, but planning for a party always reminds you of chapter 1 of The Hobbit. Ah, that's a good point, actually. I remember... In terms of The Hobbit, like The Hobbit was the one that I read when I was still in like grade school and remember really enjoying. It was Lord of the Rings I kind of needed to build up towards. Maybe it's just because it's longer, but I like The Hobbit. I'm a simple man. You know, same reason I like Animal Farm. Doesn't mean 1984 is not good. 1984 is great, but I feel like Animal Farm needs more respect. Although, I think I was mentioning this before, my latest bit of reading, well, there's 2. I've been reading Fasti again, Ovid. And again, as soon as I started reading this, I'm like, how the hell did I not pick up on more? Like, there was a little bit, like the reference to the Agonalia of Janus. The only reason I would have ever heard of that outside of Book of Hours is Ovid, Fasti. But I'm definitely realizing there's probably quite a bit more in terms of that. I don't think that's just coincidental. I suspect that probably has a few more connections. I'm curious if anybody's read that, by the way. But the big one that I've been reading that I've been just having such a great time with is Jonathan Swift's Tale of a Tub. Like, he was absolutely on fire when he wrote that. The Sun's Lament, the first volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. The thorn-beaked crows took my eyes from me in justice for my crimes, but though I lost my sight, I found my light. Abbot Thomas speaks of the breaking of his oaths to his sword brother Trigreave and to the Lord of Scars that he served before he came to the abbey. He writes of the power of oath bonds and considers the means and morality of their sundering. Okay, more fear. Probably going to have to reshelve the fear before too long. Acquire Ragged Crossroads. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. So here's roughly how I'm thinking the next little while will go. I don't think it would be a bad idea for me to try and open up the blockaded stairs because I believe this just requires ink. I don't think this has books. Might be an idea for me to clear out the tasks with Reverend Timothy. So we could say maybe 3 days at the most in terms of side tasks. And again, this is just sort of acknowledging some realities in terms of what I'm able to accomplish. So in terms of books that I thought were accessible, we've got Journal of Walter de Wolf, but I don't really have a plan for how to get that to 6 on its own. So I guess the best that I could do is I've got Bells and Braziers, I've got the tools, or the spanners rather, so that's good for 3. Foresight would bring that up to 5. So what I can do is I can give it a try and hope that maybe I get lucky with the memories. We've already got our sharp, so we don't need to worry about the Victory of Crowns. We've got Chandler's Wish, which is 12 Lantern. That's a bit tough. We've already got Ragged Crossroads now. That's also Fusine. 8 Winter actually is something we might be able to pull off. So Quenchings and Quellings is at 4, 4 and 6 with my Whist, with 2. But we already have Rhyme and Remembrance. Oh, also I think the Theoplasma would take my... No, it's just Trist. 2 Wombs, 1 Heart requires Kilisimi, and we already have... Well, we already read this, actually, so... the Bischoff work, assuming that I could read it. And this one I actually think there is a chance, because if I were to go film, I can add memory twice. So Satisfaction and Beguiling Melody gives me 4. Add Pentiments and Precursors. It gives me Resurgences and Emergences. Actually, it's another one I should probably work on. Okay. Now I think 8 or higher is where I start getting 2 lessons, and so I need to, that's the point where I really need to start thinking about where I want to put things in the Tree of Wisdoms. But yeah, so it seems like in terms of rooms, I probably have 4 in total that I could... Interesting. So if there are 4 rooms for me to open, one of it which probably has other books inside of it, maybe it makes sense for me to wait before we do the salon. So here's... Okay, I can unpause at least. Here's the new plan. Actually, I guess I don't need the money as much, but we'll still go with it. So we'll hire the... We'll hire the miner so that we can open up the blockaded stairs with the scale. From there, I should be able to see whether or not I can cross the threshold. In between, we open up the Shrouded Stair. I'm not expecting a whole lot to happen with that, but just in case. From that, we see what our remaining options are. This is more of a target of opportunity than anything. And once we have an account of exactly what I'm working with in terms of lessons, then I might consider hosting the salon. Ragged Crossroads to understand why 4 paths were not taken. 2 Edge, 1 Winter. So yeah, I do apologize. I know I was looking forward to doing having some guests over, but I think if I can get myself into a better position, the other thing I should look at, because Horizon Sight is persistent and I'm looking to use an Occult Scrap, I should maybe try, so if I take the FET, the Horizon Sight, and Occult Scrap, I can use that at the Shrine of St. Januarius. So I could probably get like a Gossip. So what is that? 4, 8, 10. And then we could combine that with Preliminal Meter. Obviously something for me to handle later. But yeah, so I think the plan, I'm going to have to leave this for another time, but the plan will be blockaded stairs are priority number 1. And in fact, probably what I do now I'll see if maybe I can also bring in Reverend Timothy with the Shrouded Stair. Especially, actually, if we wind up with a sunny day, that would be particularly good. Because then I don't need to use an element of the soul to generate the lantern. So yeah, Miner to get me through the blockaded stairs. Hopefully Reverend Timothy the same day to get past the Shrouded Stair. From there we take stock, but probably try to open the transit way. Target of opportunity is the Root Throng Descent. And depending on available elements of the soul, I make an effort to try and read the Journal of Walter de Wolf, but I'll need one element of the soul to read it, one element of the soul to generate the foresight, and one element of the soul to generate the other forge lesson that I will use. So I'm not expecting... miracles here. It's the 29th, right? Okay. I'm feeling good about where we are, but it is going to involve a little bit of... just a little bit of balancing. But I think we will be in good shape. Thank you everybody for hanging out. We will be back on Wednesday, definitely doing more Book of Hours. But I do want to take a quick second here and just see who might be online. Okay, no Cultist Simulator, no Book of Hours. Do we have Godless? No. Alright. Well, let's host Prosciutto Fist, who is currently playing Conscript, which from what I understand is sort of Eldritch Horror in the trenches. Have a wonderful night. To create, I'm sorry I couldn't stick around longer. I do appreciate your resubscription, along with everybody else. Obviously, Cree was not the only one who did resubscription. I was delighted to see Chunky Man Gamer come back. So again, I definitely don't want to take any of you for granted, but I'm always happy to see familiar faces come by. So I also went an hour over, which is not great. At least I started on time, so it's not as devastating to my bedtime, but I do need to get some writing done along with a couple of other things. So again, thanks for watching. I'll be back on Wednesday to continue this playthrough, and I'm hoping we will be able to bring in the guests, but if nothing else, we'll be making some progress towards my lessons. So please enjoy Prosciutto Fist, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.